Tonight we're returning at last to Ithaca, not with trumpets, not beneath banners, and not with cheering crowds waiting along the harbour walls, but in silence, beneath a pale sky, while the sea breathes softly against a shore you do not recognise. You have been gone for 20 years, 10 years beneath the walls of Troy, 10 more years carried across strange seas, past islands that seem to exist somewhere between geography and dream. You have heard the song of the sirens. You have watched men disappear beneath the hands of monsters. You have stood at the edge of the world of the dead. You have endured the anger of Poseidon, the temptation of immortality, and the slow destruction of nearly every companion who once sailed beside you. And now, after all of it, you're home. If you enjoy quiet journeys through the ancient world, you can gently like the video and subscribe, and if you are listening tonight from somewhere far from Ithaca, you can leave your location and local time in the comments. For now, you hear only water. Small waves slide over smooth stones and retreat with a low whisper. The air smells of salt, damp earth, wild thyme, and the faint sweetness of olives growing somewhere beyond the shore. Morning has not fully arrived. A cool mist rests across the island, softening the outlines of hills and hiding the familiar pairs that should have awakened memories within you. But they do not. You lie sleeping beside the treasures of the Phaeacians, the people who finally carried you across the sea after your long wandering. Their ship has already departed. They brought you here while you slept, placing you carefully upon your native soil like a man returned from the dead. Around you sit bronze vessels, woven garments, gold, and gifts gathered during your stay in their distant kingdom. Yet none of those treasures matter as much as the earth beneath your body. This is Ithaca, the island you dreamed of beside foreign fires, the island whose name you spoke before kings, the island you chose over the promise of eternal youth. And still, when your eyes open, you do not know it. You rise slowly, your body stiff after sleep. The sea wind moves through your hair. Cold pebbles shift beneath your feet. Through the mist, cliffs appear unfamiliar. Trees become shadowy shapes. The coastline seems strange. For a moment, a terrible possibility enters your mind. Have the Phaeacians deceived you? Perhaps they abandoned you upon some unknown island and sailed away with laughter behind their oars. It would not be the strangest betrayal you have witnessed. After 20 years, trust has become difficult. That is one of the quieter transformations of your journey. Troy taught you to doubt appearances. The sea taught you to suspect gifts. Gods arrived disguised as mortals. Monsters hid behind beautiful voices. Hospitality could lead either to a warm meal or to a locked cave, so even on Ithaca, your first instinct is caution. You begin checking the treasures. They are all here. You count carefully, touching bronze and cloth, confirming that nothing has been stolen. It is almost amusing in its sadness. After everything you have endured, after seeing the halls of Hades and the palace of Circe, you still crouch beside bundles like a suspicious merchant afraid of being cheated. But this small action reveals something important about you. You are still Odysseus. Not the strongest Greek warrior, not the fastest, not the greatest son of a god. You survive because you inspect the room before entering it. You question the obvious. You wait. Ancient audiences knew this quality well. They called it metis. A kind of cunning intelligence shaped by patience, adaptability, and practical wisdom. It belonged to hunters, sailors, craftsmen, and rulers who understood that strength alone rarely solves the most dangerous problems. And now, even here, you will need it again. The mist around Ithaca is no ordinary weather. Athena has placed it over the landscape. The goddess who guided you through so much of your story has hidden the island from your eyes deliberately. And already the old question between mortal choice and divine intention returns. Are you confused because the gods have chosen confusion for you? Or because 20 years have changed the island beyond recognition? Perhaps both. Ancient traditions often allow those answers to exist together. An island can change, a man can change, and a goddess can cover both in mist. You begin walking along the shoreline, listening for signs of life. Somewhere farther inland, a goat bell sounds faintly. Birds stir among the shrubs. You hear wind moving through olive branches with a dry silver rustling. One of those Mediterranean sounds that would have surrounded your childhood. Yet even that cannot fully awaken certainty. Then you notice someone approaching, a young shepherd. At least, that is what you see. The stranger carries the appearance of a local boy, perhaps someone from one of the farms scattered across the island. His clothing is simple, his manner is calm. There's nothing extraordinary about him, which by now should immediately make you suspicious. You approach carefully and ask where you are. The shepherd answers with surprise. Ithaca, he tells you. For a heartbeat, everything stops. You have imagined this word for years. Ithaca. It was the thought that carried you while Calypso offered immortality. It was the image behind every sunrise at sea. It was the destination that seemed to retreat each time you moved toward it. Now someone speaks its name casually, as though it were only an island. Joy rises inside you, but you do not reveal it. Instead, almost instinctively, you invent a story. You claim to be a man from Crete. You describe imagined dangers, killings, voyages, and circumstances that supposedly brought you here. Even home cannot make you stop lying. The shepherd listens, and then smiles. Something about that smile feels familiar. The fog shifts. The young face changes. Before you stands Athena. Her presence seems to sharpen the morning itself. The ordinary landscape suddenly feels sacred. You might imagine light along the edges of her form. Though Homer does not need spectacle to make the moment powerful. Recognition alone is enough. Athena has returned. You should perhaps feel relieved. Instead, there is almost a quiet tension between you. Where has she been? Why did she allow so many years of suffering? Why, after helping you at Troy, did she seem absent during so much of your wandering? The ancient poems never settle every question surrounding divine silence. Some later interpreters suggested that Athena could not openly oppose Poseidon while his anger remained strong. Others saw your suffering as part of the necessary distance between clever human beings and the gods who favour them. No one in the story is permitted complete knowledge. Not even you. Athena laughs gently at your invented tale, even standing before your patron goddess. You try to deceive her. She admires you for it. You are alike in this way, both cautious, both strategic, both reluctant to reveal everything at once. She tells you that no mortal surpasses you in cunning, just as no god surpasses her in wisdom and strategy. It is almost affectionate, but Athena has not come merely to welcome you. She has brought a warning. Your palace is occupied. More than 100 suitors have gathered around Penelope. They consume your cattle, drink your wine, command your servants, and compete to take your place. Your wife waits. Your son is in danger. Your household is divided between loyalty and betrayal. Home, you realize, has not been waiting unchanged. You survived the journey. Now you must survive the return. Athena lifts the mist. The coastline slowly becomes visible. There, a harbour. There, the slopes you once knew. There, the cave sacred to the nymphs. Recognition arrives not like thunder, but like dawn. You touch the earth. After 20 years, your hands are finally against Ithacan soil. But Athena does not allow you long to celebrate. She tells you that you cannot walk directly into your palace. Not yet. You must disappear once more. You must become someone no one fears. An old man. A beggar. A stranger. And as the goddess prepares to hide your face from your own people. The first mystery of your homecoming settles quietly over the island. Why must the man who spent 20 years trying to return as Odysseus now survive by becoming someone else? The wind moves through the olives. Far away, somewhere beyond the hills, your palace waits. And inside it, men who believe you are dead are eating your final meal before they know that you've come home. You stand beside Athena while the last of the divine mist thins across the shore. And for the first time in 20 years, Ithaca begins to look like the place memory preserved. The harbour lies quiet beneath the morning light. Low hills rise beyond it, grey-green with olive trees and scrub. Stone paths thread between fields. Somewhere farther inland, smoke climbs from a farmhouse chimney. Goats call from a slope above the coast. The wind is mild, carrying salt from the sea and the dry scent of crushed herbs warmed by the first sunlight. Nothing here is grand in the manner of Troy. There are no immense walls, no glittering palaces like those you have seen in foreign lands, no strange temples shining above mysterious islands. Ithaca is smaller than memory made it, and perhaps that is why it feels so precious. You kneel and touch the soil again. Ancient Greek audiences would have understood this gesture almost instinctively. Home was not merely a building, it was land, ancestry, household gods, burial places, inherited obligation. To return to your homeland was to return to the network of memory that gave your life its shape. Yet Athena does not let sentiment soften the danger around you. The goddess looks toward the hills, and her calm expression reminds you that this island is no longer entirely yours. You ask about Penelope. Athena tells you she remains in the palace. She has endured for years. The suitors have pressured her to choose a new husband. They come from Ithaca and the neighbouring islands, sons of wealthy families who believe your long absence has emptied the throne. They feast in your halls. They slaughter your livestock. They pour your wine. They court your wife, and still she delays them. You listen carefully. Your first feeling might be anger, but beneath it runs something quieter. Fear. 20 years is a long time. You have resisted temptation across the sea, though not without complication. You lived with Circe. You were held by Calypso. You slept beneath roofs far from home while Penelope remained here, surrounded by men who treated your absence as opportunity. What does she think of you now? Does she still believe you live? Has hope become merely habit? Or has she, perhaps, begun to imagine a future in which you never return? You do not ask Athena everything. Some questions are too vulnerable even to speak before a goddess. Instead, you ask about your son, Telemachus. The boy you left behind was an infant. In your memory, he has no voice. You remember a small body in Penelope's arms. Perhaps the warmth of his head beneath your hand. Perhaps the weight of departure more than any particular detail. War came before he could know you. Now he is a young man. Athena tells you that he has travelled in search of news. He went first to Pylos, where old Nestor still carries memories of Troy, then to Sparta, where Menelaus and Helen live beneath the strange quiet of survivors. Your son has been asking other men what happened to his father. The thought lands heavily. For 20 years, Telemachus has been growing toward an absence. Ancient storytellers knew how powerful this pattern was. Sons inherited not only property but unfinished stories. A missing father created uncertainty in the household, in politics, even in identity. Telemachus must become a man while the question of your life or death remains unresolved. And the suitors know it. Athena warned you that they are planning to kill him. That changes the air. The morning still seems peaceful. Birds still call from the hills. But now the island feels watched. You look toward the road leading inland and imagine your son returning alone, perhaps at night, perhaps along the coast, unaware of men waiting to ambush him. The anger inside you becomes colder. Not loud, not yet. You have learned what loud anger costs. Poseidon's wrath began, in part, because after escaping the Cyclops, you could not resist shouting your true name across the water. That decision has followed you for years. Athena knows this too. She reminds you, without needing to say much, that this homecoming must not repeat that mistake. You cannot announce yourself. You cannot confront the suitors openly. You cannot even reveal yourself to those who may love you. Not yet. The goddess moves toward the treasures left by the Phaeacians. Together you carry them toward a cave sacred to the nymphs. The entrance lies among stone and vegetation, cool and shadowed after the bright shoreline. Inside, the temperature drops. Moisture darkens the rock. The air smells of earth, minerals, and old water. Ancient Greek caves often carried sacred associations. They could seem like thresholds between worlds. places where divine presence belonged more easily than in ordinary space. Nymphs, gods, heroes, and spirits might be imagined dwelling close to such hidden places. Here, you hide the wealth brought from Phaeacia. It is a strangely practical sacred act. Gold and bronze disappear into darkness. Your return must begin with concealment. Then Athena turns to you. She has one more transformation to perform. You have changed many times already. Warrior, captain, shipwrecked survivor, guest, prisoner, lover, supplicant, storyteller. Now you will become a beggar. Athena touches you. Your skin changes. The flesh of your limbs seems to loosen. Your face becomes lined. Your hair thins and pales. The strong body that once pulled a bow no ordinary man could string now appears reduced by age and hardship. She clothes you in worn garments, a filthy tunic, a ragged cloak, the kind of clothing that wealthy men might barely notice passing through a doorway. You look at your hands. They are yours and not yours. That uncertainty carries an old mythic power. In Greek storytelling, identity is often tested through appearance. Gods disguise themselves. Heroes hide their names. Strangers arrive carrying unknown histories. Hospitality matters precisely because you do not always know who stands at your door. A beggar might be only a beggar, or Athena could be watching through his eyes. Zeus himself was believed to protect the stranger and the guest. That makes what is happening in your palace even more significant. The suitors believe power belongs to those who can consume the most, command the loudest, and occupy the finest seat. Soon they will be judged by how they treat someone who appears powerless. Athena tells you where to go. Not to the palace. Not yet. You must seek Eumaeus, your swineherd. He lives among the hills, tending your pigs. Athena tells you that he remains loyal. That word matters. Loyal? After 20 years. You do not know how many people can still be described that way. You begin walking inland. The path climbs through rough country. Dry stones shift beneath your sandals. Cypress trees stand dark against the sky. Olive branches flash silver when the wind turns their leaves. Insects hum among grasses. Somewhere nearby, you smell wood smoke and animals. You move slowly in the body Athena has given you. Each step reinforces the disguise. Anyone seeing you now would imagine an old traveller moving from village to village, asking for bread. No one would see the king of Ithaca. And perhaps that is the point. A king entering openly would see what people wanted him to see. A beggar sees what they truly are. As you walk, another warning settles into memory. Athena has not promised that everyone in your household deserves saving. Some servants have remained faithful. Others have chosen the suitors. Some may have believed you dead. Others may simply prefer the new order. You will have to discover the difference. That uncertainty is more dangerous than any monster with a single eye. A cyclops is easy to recognize. Betrayal can smile. By afternoon, the sun warms the hills. The sea behind you becomes a blue strip between ridges. You pause beneath an olive tree and look toward the distant interior of the island. Somewhere ahead is Eumaeus. Somewhere beyond him is Telemachus. And farther still, inside the palace, Penelope moves through rooms that still carry your name. But before you can reclaim any of them, you must learn what 20 years has done. The prophecy of return has brought you to Ithaca. Now comes the harder question.
What exactly have you returned to?
The leaves stir above you. You lower your head beneath the beggar's hood and continue toward the hills. You continue into the hills beneath the appearance Athena has given you, and with every step Ithaca becomes more familiar. Not because everything is unchanged, because it is not. That may be the first truth you must accept about coming home. The path bends around terraces supported by rough stone walls. Olive trees twist from pale soil, their trunks thickened by years you did not witness. Goats pick their way across distant slopes. A farmer calls to an animal somewhere beyond the ridge, and the voice travels strangely through the warm air. You remember these sounds, yet memory keeps trying to place younger faces inside an older landscape. 20 years ago, you left Ithaca as a king sailing toward Troy. The countryside you abandoned continued without you. Children became adults. Adults became old. Some of the old died. Fields changed hands, walls collapsed and were rebuilt. Trees were planted by people you have never met. The kingdom did not freeze when your ship disappeared beyond the horizon. And neither did your household. As you move inland, Athena's warning returns to you. The suitors are not merely unwanted guests. They represent something deeper. Your absence has created a wound in the political life of Ithaca. The Odyssey gives no simple picture of kingship resembling later European monarchy. Your authority is personal, rooted in household, ancestry, reputation, wealth, alliances, and the ability to command respect. When that central figure disappears for 20 years, uncertainty enters every relationship around him. Are you alive? Are you dead? Does Penelope still possess the household in your name? Will Telemachus inherit your position, or can another powerful family claim it through marriage? No messenger has arrived with your body. No funeral has settled the matter. You exist in the most dangerous condition possible. You are absent but not conclusively dead. So the suitors wait, and while they wait, they consume. You imagine the palace before you see it. Tables covered with bread and roasted meat, mixing bowls filled with wine and water, servants moving between benches, musicians playing while young nobles laugh beneath a roof built by a household. Hospitality was sacred in the Greek imagination. A host offered food, shelter, and protection to the stranger. A guest accepted those gifts with restraint and respect. Zeus himself watched over this relationship. But hospitality could be corrupted. A guest who refused to leave became something else. The suitors have crossed that boundary. They slaughter animals they didn't raise. They drink wine they did not store. They demand Penelope choose among them while plotting against her son. They behave as though abundance has no limit. For an ancient audience, this excess carried an omen within itself. Nothing limitless belongs to mortals. Not youth, not wealth, not feasting, not power. Those who forget limits eventually attract consequence. Still, you must not imagine every suitor is identical. Some are more violent, some are younger, some may have followed others. Ancient storytelling often gathers men into a doomed group while allowing differences of character to emerge within it. That makes judgment uncomfortable. How much guilt belongs to the leader? How much to the follower who knows something is wrong but remains at the table? The poem will not let that question disappear. Neither can you. A breeze moves over the ridge. You pull Athena's ragged cloak more tightly around yourself. The fabric scratches against your skin. The goddess has made the disguise convincing in every detail. Your shoulders appear narrower. Your face carries the marks of age. Anyone passing you would see poverty before personality. You are learning what it feels like to become socially invisible. That invisibility is your weapon. Athena understood something that brute force could not accomplish. You need information before revenge. You must discover who remained loyal. You must see how servants behave when they believe their master will never return. You must hear what people say about Odysseus when Odysseus is not supposed to be listening. Above all, you must see Penelope. But even that cannot happen yet. The thought of her follows you along the path. You remember a younger woman, not an icon of patience. Not yet the Penelope later generations will transform into a symbol of marital fidelity. A living woman, intelligent, cautious, capable of deception in ways that resemble you more closely than either of you may realize. Her famous weaving trick has already delayed the suitors for years. She promised to choose a husband after finishing a burial shroud for your father Laertes. Each day she wove. Each night she secretly undid the work. Time itself became her defense. You survived through movement. Penelope survived by delay. Perhaps this is why your marriage endured in imagination. You are both people who refuse the obvious path. Eventually, however, a servant revealed her trick. The warning hidden within that betrayal is clear. Secrets do not remain secret forever. Yours cannot either. You continue walking. Along the route stands a small rural shrine. Nothing enormous. Perhaps a few stones, offerings, traces of ash where someone burned a sacrifice. The smell of old smoke lingers faintly in the warmth. You pause. For Greeks living across scattered islands and valleys, Sacred space was woven into ordinary geography. A traveller might pass shrines at crossroads, springs, groves, caves, boundaries, and hilltops. The divine world was not sealed behind temple doors. A sign could arrive anywhere, in the flight of a bird, in thunder from a clear sky, in a dream, in an unexpected meeting. You look upward. A bird of prey circles high over the landscape. It turns once above the ridge before gliding toward the interior. Is it an omen? You cannot know. Neither could every ancient listener. Interpreting signs was itself uncertain. A sign might be genuine, misunderstood, or noticed only after events gave it meaning. But Athena has already promised help, and the bird flies toward the direction you must travel. So you follow. The road becomes rougher. The wealthier fields give way to grazing land and woodland. You hear pigs before you see any enclosure, their grunts carrying through the trees. Eumaeus must be close. Your swineherd, the servant Athena described as loyal. But you remember her other warning. Do not reveal yourself too soon. Even loyalty must be tested. You feel the strangeness of that instruction. This man has cared for your property while others consume it. He has apparently remained devoted to you for 2 decades. And still you must lie to him. The habit of concealment has become so deep that returning home cannot immediately cure it. Perhaps this is another transformation produced by the journey. The man who left Ithaca belonged here without question. The man returning must examine everything before trusting it. Even love, even loyalty, even home. Late sunlight falls across the hills, turning dry grasses golden. Shadows gather beneath the trees. The smell of animals becomes stronger, mixed with earth, leather, smoke, and crushed leaves. Then dogs begin barking, not the harmless barking of animals behind a distant fence. These are working dogs, guardians. You hear paws striking hard ground. Shapes rush toward you. For one sudden moment, the peaceful countryside becomes dangerous. You are disguised as an old beggar. You cannot simply stand like the warrior who fought beneath Troy. The dogs charge, and from somewhere beyond them, a man sees you. He moves quickly. A shout cuts across the enclosure. The dogs hesitate. You look toward the stranger coming to protect you. He does not know your name. He does not know that the poor traveller at his gate owns the land beneath his feet. He sees only someone vulnerable who has arrived seeking shelter. And before you speak a single word to Eumaeus, he has already begun answering the most important question of your return. What kind of man is someone when he believes his king will never see him? Eumaeus rushes toward the dogs before they can reach you. His voice cuts through their barking, firm but familiar, and the animals retreat reluctantly from the stranger they were prepared to tear apart. One circles behind you, still suspicious. Another stands with its head lowered, watching. Eumaeus drives them away with stones and sharp commands. Then he turns toward you. He sees an old beggar in worn clothing. Nothing more. Yet his first concern is that you might have been injured. He invites you inside. The gesture is simple, but after everything Athena told you about the palace, it carries unusual weight. Down there, wealthy men consume your household while violating the laws of hospitality. Up here, among pigs and rough stone, a servant offers shelter to someone who appears to have nothing. You follow him into his dwelling. It is modest and practical, built for work rather than ceremony. The enclosure around it has been carefully constructed, with walls protecting the animals and shelters arranged against weather. Smoke hangs lightly beneath the roof. The air carries the strong scent of pigs, leather, wood ash, and earth. There is no polished marble, no bronze gleaming in torchlight, no servants pouring wine from decorated vessels. But there is order. And perhaps, after 10 years at sea, order feels more luxurious than gold. Eumaeus gives you a place to sit. He arranges branches beneath you and covers them with a hide so the old traveller he believes you to be can rest comfortably. You notice every detail. This man is poor compared with the nobles occupying your palace, yet he gives what he can. That distinction would have mattered deeply to ancient listeners. Hospitality was not measured only by abundance, A shepherd could honor Zeus more completely with bread, meat, and sincere welcome than a wealthy king could with golden cups if arrogance poisoned the gift. Eumaeus prepares food. You watch his hands. They are the hands of a man who has worked for years. He selects animals, prepares the meal, and makes an offering to the gods before eating. Fat crackles near the fire. Smoke rises into the darkening room. Warm meat fills the air with rich scent after the dry smell of the hillside. He divides the portions carefully. Even here, ritual shapes the meal. The gods receive their share. The guest receives his. No one behaves as though food exists merely to satisfy hunger. And as you sit beneath your disguise, you understand the contrast Athena intended you to see. The suitors feast without measure. Eumaeus shares with restraint. The palace is rich but spiritually disordered. The hut is humble but governed by the old rules. You begin to talk. At first, Eumaeus speaks as hosts often speak to travelers. Where have you come from? What have you suffered? Who are your people? These questions are dangerous for you. Your true answer would end the test immediately, so you remain the stranger. Before offering your invented history, you encourage him to speak about his master, about Odysseus. Your own name enters the room. Eumaeus changes. His loyalty is not abstract. He misses you. He speaks of the master who treated him with kindness, and of the household that existed before Troy swallowed 20 years of your life. He believes you're probably dead. That hurts more than accusation might have. The world has had good reason to bury you in memory. Eumaeus tells you that strangers sometimes arrive claiming to possess news of Odysseus. They hope Penelope will reward them. They offer stories, rumors, prophecies. Your return has become a market for false hope. He no longer trusts it. You listen beside the fire. There is something strange about hearing yourself mourned while still alive. You have visited the underworld, where shades remember their former lives. Now you experience the opposite. You are alive, sitting beside someone who speaks of you almost as though you were already a ghost. Outside, evening settles across Ithaca. The hills darken. The last light disappears from the western sky, leaving a faint glow over the distant sea. Wind passes through the trees. The dogs occasionally bark at sounds beyond the enclosure. Eumaeus pours wine. The cup is plain. The wine tastes familiar. For a moment, perhaps dangerously, you feel home. Then the swineherd speaks of the suitors. The feeling disappears. They consume your animals day after day. Eumaeus resents them deeply, but he is only one servant. He cannot walk into the palace and challenge the sons of powerful families. He fears for Telemachus. He fears for Penelope. And beneath all of it lies the old uncertainty. Will Odysseus return? You know the answer. He does not. That gives you a kind of power, but also a burden. You could end his grief with a sentence. You could say your name. You could watch disbelief become recognition. Yet Athena warned you to wait. So you do what you have done across the entire journey. You hide truth inside a story. You tell Eumaeus that Odysseus will return. The swineherd shakes his head. He has heard such promises before. You insist. You even offer to wager on it. Still he resists hope. Then the conversation turns towards signs and predictions. You speak as though your invented travels brought you knowledge of Odysseus. You suggest that he lives and is close to returning. The prophecy hangs between you and the fire. Eumaeus does not accept it easily. And perhaps this skepticism reveals something beautiful about him. His loyalty does not depend upon believing you are alive. He remains loyal even when he believes you will never reward him. That is precisely what you needed to discover. The fire cracks. Sparks rise and vanish. Outside, clouds move across the stars. You look at Eumaeus differently now. Athena told you he was faithful. But divine information is one thing. Seeing loyalty with your own eyes is another. Still, one mystery remains. How many others are like him? You remember servants who once filled your palace. Some were children when you left. Some may be dead. Some may have chosen new masters. Others may be waiting silently, as Eumaeus has waited. There is no way to know without entering the household. And that moment is coming. Eumaeus gives you more food. He does not keep the best portion for himself. Later, As the night grows colder, he prepares a place for you to sleep. Then he goes outside to watch over the animals. You notice what he wears: a heavy cloak, a hide against the cold, practical protection against the night wind moving down from the hills. Ancient audiences listening to these domestic details would recognize a world in which wealth was measured partly in livestock, cloth, stored grain, wine, land, and dependable labor. Archaeology across the Greek world has revealed settlements shaped around precisely these rhythms of household production and animal keeping. Though historians continue to debate how closely Homeric society reflects any single historical period, the poem preserves many ages at once. Bronze Age memories, later Greek customs, generations of oral storytelling. And here, within that layered world, you lie in a swineherd's hut listening to your own animals beyond the wall. The king has returned, yet the king sleeps as a beggar. Before closing your eyes, you remember Athena's warning about Telemachus. Your son is returning. The suitors know he threatens their plans. Somewhere beyond these hills, perhaps beyond the dark sea itself, events are already moving toward you. You do not know when he will arrive. You do not know whether the ambush waits for him. You cannot protect him tonight. For a father who survived Troy through strategy, helpless waiting may be harder than battle. The wind strengthens, branches whisper above the enclosure. Then, through an opening in the clouds, a star appears over Ithaca. Only one at first, then another. No oracle speaks, no thunder sounds. But you remember how sailors read the heavens, how journeys depend upon signs that remain distant and silent. Perhaps the gods are watching. Perhaps Athena is already guiding Telemachus toward the same hills. Or perhaps the stars are simply stars. You lie beneath the borrowed covering, listening to Eumaeus moving outside. The man does not know his king is sleeping a few steps away, and somewhere in the darkness beyond him, the son who has never truly known his father is coming home. Morning reaches the swineherd's hut quietly. Before the sun appears above the hills, you hear the animals shifting beyond the walls, dogs move through the yard. Men speak in low voices as they begin another day of work. The fire that warmed the hut through the night has fallen to glowing embers, and the air carries the mingled scents of ash, wool, damp earth, and animals. You awaken beneath the body Athena has given you. For a moment, there is no sea, no storm, no Cyclops, no enchanted island, only Ithaca. Then you remember that you are still pretending not to be here. Eumaeus returns from his duties and revives the fire. He treats you with the same kindness he showed the night before. Nothing about his hospitality has changed now that daylight has returned. That consistency matters. A man can perform generosity once. Character is what remains afterward. You begin talking again, and now Eumaeus asks more directly about your past. Who are you? Where did you come from? What chain of events reduced you to wandering in ragged clothing? You could tell him the truth in a few sentences. Instead, you build another life. Crete becomes your birthplace. You describe yourself as the son of a wealthy man and a concubine, a warrior drawn toward danger and distant voyages. You speak of campaigns, ships, Egypt, betrayal, slavery, escape. The story is false, but the emotions inside it are not. That is one of your peculiar gifts. Your lies often borrow from truth. War, shipwreck, loss, foreign courts, dangerous seas. The names change, but the feelings remain recognizable. Eumaeus listens. Firelight moves across his face. Perhaps he believes some of it, perhaps not. The Odyssey rarely asks you to admire deception simply because it is clever. Your stories protect you, but they also reveal how difficult truth has become for you. You have survived so long through disguise that honesty now feels dangerous, even beside a loyal servant, even at home. And yet Eumaeus offers something you did not expect. His own story. Long ago, he tells you, he was not born a slave on Ithaca. His father was a king on an island called Syria, a distant place remembered through the haze of epic geography. A Phoenician woman living in the household conspired with sailors from her homeland. She carried the young Eumaeus away, but died during the voyage. Eventually, Laertes purchased the boy. Your father, Eumaeus, grew within your household. Suddenly the servant before you becomes more complicated. He too is a displaced person. He too crossed the sea because of forces beyond his control. He too remembers another home. Perhaps that is one reason he treats wandering strangers with compassion. He understands that the person arriving at your door may once have belonged somewhere else. The fire cracks softly between you. Ancient Mediterranean audiences knew stories of merchants, captives, migration, piracy, and enslavement. Phoenician sailors moved through Greek imagination as skilled traders and navigators, sometimes admired and sometimes treated with suspicion. Archaeological discoveries show how interconnected Mediterranean communities became through trade, travel, and settlement, though the world preserved in Homer remains a poetic mixture rather than a simple historical record. Eumaeus belongs to that larger sea. So do you. Two men separated by rank sit beside one fire, both shaped by journeys they never intended to make. Then your name returns, Odysseus. You tell Eumaeus again that his master lives. You offer a prediction. Before the month turns, you say, Odysseus will return and punish those who dishonor his household. The words sound like prophecy. Eumaeus does not celebrate. He has heard promises before. He tells you not to try winning his favor with false news. There is melancholy in his refusal. Hope has hurt him too many times. You understand that better than he knows. For years, you hoped each island would bring you closer to Ithaca. Then the winds changed. The ships were destroyed. A god became angry. A companion made a mistake. Hope became dangerous because every new hope created another possibility of loss. Penelope has lived with the same wound. Telemachus too. Perhaps Ithaca itself has been waiting so long that waiting has become part of its identity. You study Eumaeus. You want to reveal yourself. The impulse grows stronger. This man deserves the truth. But Athena's warning returns. Wait, that command has followed you since the shore. You must not become again the man who escaped Polyphemus and shouted his identity across the water. That earlier decision cost you dearly. You had already escaped. Your ship was moving towards safety. Yet pride demanded recognition. You wanted the Cyclops to know exactly who defeated him. Odysseus, king of Ithaca. The name became a weapon turned against you. Polyphemus raised his hands toward Poseidon and cursed your journey home. That curse followed you across the sea. Now your name must remain hidden. The contrast is almost perfect. Once, you suffered because you revealed yourself too soon. Now survival depends upon knowing precisely when to speak. Outside, sunlight spreads across the enclosure. The workers lead animals toward grazing ground. Bells sound faintly along the slopes. The morning grows warm, carrying the scent of herbs through the open doorway. Eumaeus speaks of Telemachus. Your attention sharpens immediately. He loves the young man. He worries about him almost as a father might. Telemachus has gone seeking information about you. And Eumaeus fears the suitors will destroy him before he can claim his inheritance. You ask questions carefully. You cannot sound too interested. That restraint hurts. This is your son being discussed. A son whose voice you barely know. You picture the infant you left behind and try to imagine the man returning from Sparta. Does he resemble you, Penelope? Does he carry himself confidently? Does he hate the father who left? No prophecy can answer those questions. Then Eumaeus mentions Penelope. She still grieves. She still waits. But pressure surrounds her. The suitors cannot remain indefinitely. Something must change. Perhaps she will finally choose. Perhaps Telemachus will be killed. Perhaps the household will pass into another man's hands. The story has reached a narrowing path. You feel it. So did ancient audiences who already knew the myth. Knowing the destination does not remove tension when the road toward it becomes smaller with every step. Then a sound rises outside. The dogs. You remember their violence when you first approached. This time they do not bark. Instead, they move differently. Tails stirring, bodies relaxed. Someone familiar is coming. Eumaeus has not yet seen who it is. You turn toward the doorway. Footsteps approach across the yard. A young man is climbing toward the hut. For years you imagined reaching Ithaca. You imagined Penelope, the palace, perhaps your father Laertes, but the person now approaching is someone a memory cannot prepare you to meet. Telemachus was a baby when you sailed for Troy. The man outside has lived almost his entire life beneath the shadow of your absence. Eumaeus rises. His face transforms with recognition and affection. He moves toward the doorway, and you remain seated beside the dying fire hidden inside the body of an old beggar while your son comes home. Before Telemachus reaches the swineherd's doorway, you must follow the path that brought him here, across the same restless sea that shaped your own fate. Only a short time earlier, your son is still away from Ithaca. For almost all his life, he has known you through other people's memories. Old warriors remember your voice, sailors remember your cunning. Penelope remembers the husband who sailed toward Troy. Servants remember the master of the household. Telemachus remembers almost nothing, so he has gone searching. His journey takes him first to Pylos, where Nestor, old companion of the Greek armies, receives him according to the sacred customs of hospitality. Smoke rises from sacrifices near the shore. Cattle are offered to Poseidon. Wine is poured. The smell of roasted meat mingles with salt air while stories of Troy return from men who survived it. But certainty does not. Then Telemachus travels to Sparta. There, Menelaus lives again as king, surrounded by wealth gathered through years of wandering. Helen is beside him, still carrying the strange legacy of the war fought in her name. They recognize something in the young visitor. You, perhaps in his eyes, perhaps in the shape of his face, perhaps simply in the way he listens. For Telemachus, this must feel unsettling. All his life, strangers have compared him with a ghost. Menelaus offers him what he can: memories, stories, and news gathered during his own wanderings. He tells Telemachus that you were once held upon Calypso's island. Alive, that single word changes everything. Alive, but even this information belongs to the past by the time your son hears it. Are you still alive now? No one can say. Ancient audiences understood how slowly knowledge crossed the sea. There were no messages moving faster than ships, horses, or human feet. News could arrive months or years late, transformed by retelling. A rumor might be true when it began and false by the time it reached you. Telemachus must return carrying hope without certainty. Then Athena comes. The goddess who has already hidden you on Ithaca also watches over your son. She warns him through divine guidance that danger waits at home. The suitors know he has left, and they intend to kill him when he returns. Their plan is simple. A ship waits near the approaches to Ithaca. Men watch the water. Telemachus must pass through the same narrow geography that makes island life secure and dangerous at once. He does not know every detail, but he knows enough. He must sail carefully. Night settles over the sea. You can imagine his ship moving beneath stars that generations of Mediterranean sailors used to orient themselves across dark water. The hull rises and falls gently. Ropes creak. Canvas tightens under the wind. Salt dries on the skin. The smell of timber, wool, oil, and sea surrounds the crew. Behind him lies Sparta. Ahead lies Ithaca, and somewhere on that island, though he cannot know it, you're already waiting. Perhaps this is one of the most beautiful structures in the old poem. Father and son travel toward each other without knowing how close they have become. For years, distance separated you by entire seas. Now only hills and hours remain. Athena's warning guides Telemachus away from the suitor's trap. Divine signs in Greek epic rarely remove human responsibility. The goddess can warn, she can guide, but Telemachus must act. He gives orders. He chooses where to land. He begins behaving not as the uncertain young man trapped among suitors, but as someone capable of decision. Your absence wounded him, yet it also forced him to grow without your protection. This is the son you are about to meet, not a child waiting to be taught everything. A young man already shaped by danger, as Ithaca appears, perhaps first as darkness against the horizon, and then as hills beneath early light. Telemachus does not sail directly toward the palace. He follows the safer course. The ship reaches shore. Men secure it. The sound of water against the hull becomes quieter. Telemachus steps onto his homeland carrying knowledge that the men in his house want him dead. An omen appears during these movements around his return. A bird of prey, a sign associated with power and divine intention, becomes part of the network of predictions surrounding him. The exact interpretation of such omens has long fascinated readers, because Homeric signs rarely function like simple instructions. They require interpretation, and interpretation reveals the hopes and fears of the people watching. Does the bird promise victory, kingship, the return of the father, or simply the fall of enemies? The future remains hidden even when the gods seem to gesture toward it. Telemachus sends his companions onward while he turns toward the countryside, toward Eumaeus. The swineherd has become more than a servant to him. In a household corrupted by men competing for Penelope, Eumaeus represents something stable. Telemachus trusts him, and so your son climbs into the hills. Meanwhile, the suitors wait. Their ambush has failed. The failure creates danger of another kind. A trapped enemy can become reckless. When word reaches the palace that Telemachus has returned safely, the suitors must confront a truth they hoped to prevent. The heir of Odysseus is alive. He has travelled among kings. He has begun forming relationships beyond Ithaca. He has returned more confident than when he left. And he is becoming difficult to dismiss as a boy. Some among the suitors still want him killed. Others understand how serious that would be. To murder a host's son while consuming his household is not merely political violence, it compounds violation upon violation. The shadow of Zeus Xenios, Zeus who protects guests and strangers, hangs over everything they do. They have received hospitality and abused it. They have courted a woman whose husband has never been confirmed dead. Now they contemplate killing her son. Ancient audiences know that such excess cannot continue forever. But the suitors do not know that judgment is already walking through Ithaca dressed in rags. Back in the hills, you sit inside Eumaeus's hut. You know none of the details of Telemachus's night voyage. You do not know precisely how Athena guided him. You do not know what he learned in Sparta. You only know that your son is somewhere in the world. Then the dogs outside change. They do not bark. That is the first sign. Eumaeus looks toward the doorway. A figure enters the yard. The swineherd recognizes him immediately. Telemachus. Eumaeus moves toward him with an emotion so strong that for a moment you're almost forgotten. He embraces the young man. The scene has the tenderness of a father receiving a son who escaped death. You watch. Perhaps there is gratitude. Perhaps jealousy too, though you would never admit it. Eumaeus has known your son in ways you have not. He knows the sound of Telemachus's adult voice. He knows his habits. He has watched him grow. You have missed all of it. Telemachus enters. You rise respectfully from your seat, playing the role of an old stranger who should surrender the better place to a nobleman. Telemachus stops you. He tells you to remain seated. Another place can be found, a small gesture. But you notice it. Your son has just encountered someone who appears poor and powerless, and his first instinct is not contempt. The contrast with the suitors could hardly be clearer. You study his face. There you are. And Penelope, and someone entirely new. He looks at you without recognition. Why would he recognize you? The father he imagines is a warrior from stories. The man before him is an old beggar. Eumaeus begins explaining who you supposedly are. A traveller. A stranger needing protection. Telemachus listens. And then the young man begins speaking about the palace, about the suitors, about the danger surrounding his household. You hear your son describe your kingdom while believing he is speaking to someone who has no place within it. Outside, the morning grows brighter. A breeze moves through the enclosure. Somewhere high above the hills, perhaps unseen. Athena watches. She has brought both of you here. She has preserved the disguise. She has allowed father and son to sit only a few steps apart. But the moment of recognition cannot remain delayed much longer. Telemachus looks at you again. You look back, and the old warning returns. Do not reveal yourself until the right moment. For 20 years, You have waited to come home. Now, with your own son standing before you, you must wait a little longer. You sit only a few steps from Telemachus, watching him speak with Eumaeus as though you were merely an old traveller warming yourself in a stranger's hut. The distance between you is almost nothing. 20 years have narrowed to the width of a small room. Yet your son does not know you. Eumaeus moves around the hut with obvious affection for him, preparing food and asking about the journey. Telemachus answers, but anxiety remains beneath his words. He has returned safely. Yet safety on Ithaca is fragile. The suitors still occupy the palace. Penelope remains surrounded, and now those men know Telemachus has escaped their ambush. You listen carefully. The father in you wants to ask everything at once. Were you afraid at sea? What did Menelaus tell you? What did Helen say about Troy? What kind of man have you become? Instead, you remain silent. Eumaeus soon receives another task. Telemachus asks him to go to the palace and quietly tell Penelope that her son has returned safely. The swineherd agrees. He leaves the enclosure and begins descending toward the town. The dogs settle. His footsteps fade. And suddenly you're alone with your son. Not entirely alone. Athena is near. Telemachus cannot see her when she appears to you. You notice her presence beyond the hut. Radiant where moments earlier there seemed only countryside. The goddess gives you the sign you've been waiting for. Now, the disguise begins to fall away. Your body straightens. The age Athena placed upon your skin disappears. Your face changes. Your shoulders regain their strength. Your hair darkens. The ragged stranger who sat beside the fire becomes a powerful man in the space of a few breaths. Telemachus stares. He moves backward. Fear enters his face. Not recognition. Fear. He thinks you must be a god, and perhaps this reaction tells you something about the world he inhabits. Gods can appear without warning. Athena has already guided him in disguise. Stories of divine visitors belong to the cultural imagination surrounding him. A beggar becoming a strong warrior before his eyes seems easier to explain through divinity than through fatherhood. You tell him no, you are not a god. You are the man for whom he has searched. You are Odysseus, his father. The words should solve everything. They do not. Telemachus refuses to believe you. That disbelief cuts more deeply than you expected. But how could he respond differently? He has lived among rumours. Strangers have brought stories. His mother has waited through false reports. Eumaeus has learned to distrust prophecies of your return. Now an unknown beggar transforms before him and claims to be the most important missing person in his life. Telemachus suspects divine deception. Perhaps a god is testing him. Perhaps some supernatural trick is unfolding. You try again. You explain that Athena changed your appearance. You tell him that after years of suffering, you have finally reached Ithaca. Still he watches. Then emotion breaks through the careful distance you have maintained since landing. You begin to weep. Odysseus, destroyer of cities, survivor of monsters, strategist of Troy, sits beneath a poor man's roof and cries before his son. Telemachus sees something the heroic stories could never give him. Not a legend. A man. He moves toward you, and at last, father and son embrace. The grief comes with the joy. Perhaps that is inevitable. You are not merely celebrating reunion. You are mourning the years that reunion cannot restore. You never taught him to hold a spear. You never watched his first steps. You were not there when his voice changed. Telemachus never knew the younger man Penelope remembers. You meet as adults connected by blood, reputation, and longing, but without shared years. Ancient epic understands that homecoming is not the reversal of absence. Time moves only one way. Outside, the wind passes through the trees. Inside, you hold your son. Homer compares the sound of your weeping to birds whose young have been taken from them before they could feed them. It is a harsh image hidden inside a tender reunion. Love and loss occupy the same moment. Eventually the tears quiet. There is work to do. Telemachus wants to know how you returned. You tell him of the Phaeacians who carried you sleeping across the sea and left their treasures beside you. Their kindness fulfilled the final stage of your voyage. But Poseidon has not forgotten them. An old prophecy hangs over the Phaeacians. Their remarkable ability to carry strangers safely across the sea would someday anger the sea god, who might strike one of their returning ships and threaten their city. The warning connects your arrival to another people's fate. Even the kindness that brought you home may carry a price. Ancient myth rarely allows human actions to end neatly at the edge of one person's story. Telemachus listens. Then his thoughts return to the palace. How many allies have you brought? The question is practical. You answer with the truth. None. Telemachus is stunned. The suitors are numerous. More than 100 men occupy the household, surrounded by servants and supported by powerful families. You and your son are 2. Even with Eumaeus, you would still be hopelessly outnumbered. Telemachus begins counting the enemies aloud, as though numbers might reveal some path through them. You let him. Then you ask a different question. If Athena and Zeus stand with you, how many more allies do you need? The divine names change the calculation, but they do not remove the danger. You remember Troy. The gods supported warriors there too. Men still died. Divine favor is not the same as immunity. Athena has promised help, but she has also demanded patience. So you begin forming the plan. Telemachus must return to the palace. He must behave normally. He must not tell Penelope you're here. Not Euryclea, not the servants. No one. Secrecy seems cruel, especially toward Penelope. But one loose word could destroy everything. You will enter later as the beggar. Telemachus must allow the suitors to insult you. That may be difficult. You warn him explicitly. They may strike you. They may mock you. They may humiliate the father he has only just found. He must endure it. Your son looks at you. This will be his test. Not fighting, restraint. The same lesson you learn through suffering. You then tell him that when the moment comes, he must remove the weapons from the great hall. Spears, shields, helmets, anything the suitors could seize, if questioned. He should offer an explanation. Smoke is damaging the weapons, or drunken arguments might turn violent. A life-serving strategy. Your son is beginning to enter your world, yet you instruct him to leave weapons for the 2 of you. The plan is taking shape. Still, uncertainty remains. Which servants can be trusted? Will Penelope unknowingly interfere? Will Athena truly stand beside you when the hall erupts? And can 2 men defeat an entire generation of Ithacan nobles without plunging the island into blood feud afterward? No one answers. Not yet. Then you remember the Cyclops, the wooden stake, the false name, the escape beneath the sheep. You defeated Polyphemus because strength was impossible and patience created opportunity. But afterward you revealed your identity too soon. You will not repeat that error. This time, the name Odysseus will remain hidden until concealment has done all it can. Telemachus studies you as you speak. Perhaps he's discovering that the father of legend is not simply brave. He is cautious, suspicious, sometimes frighteningly patient. And you are discovering something about him too. He listens. He questions. He does not collapse beneath the scale of what lies ahead. The boy you left is gone. A young man sits before you. Outside, afternoon light spreads across the hills. Soon Eumaeus will return. Before that happens, Athena must restore your disguise. The strong body fades. Age returns. Your shoulders stoop. Your face wrinkles. Once again, the king disappears. Telemachus watches the transformation with new understanding. When Eumaeus eventually comes back through the enclosure, he will see only what he saw before. The old beggar. The loyal servant will not know that inside his own hut. The fate of Ithaca has changed. Father and son have found each other. A plan exists, and somewhere below the hills, beneath the roof of your palace, the suitors continue eating and drinking, unaware that the young man they failed to murder has returned with the one person they believed would never come home. Night gathers slowly around Eumaeus's hut, and beneath its quiet roof. The future of Ithaca is being decided by 3 men, though only 2 of them understand it. Eumaeus has returned from the palace. He brings news. Penelope knows that Telemachus is safe, but the suitors know as well. Their ambush has failed. and the mood within the household is changing. Men who expected to remove your son quietly must now decide what to do with him openly. You sit near the fire in the body of the old beggar and listen while Eumaeus describes what he has seen. Telemachus sits nearby. Neither of you can acknowledge what happened between you earlier. You cannot look at him as a father might. He cannot look at you as a son who has just recovered someone from the dead. Secrecy has entered the reunion almost as soon as reunion began. Perhaps that is appropriate for you. Your life has become a series of truths hidden inside appearances. But Telemachus is new to this kind of concealment. You watch him carefully. He does not betray you. That matters. The plan you form together depends not upon strength but control. Tomorrow Telemachus will go to the palace. Later you will follow. Once inside you will observe. You need to know who among the servants remains faithful. You need to see which suitors are merely arrogant and which are actively murderous. You need to understand the rhythms of the hall, where weapons are kept, which doors can be secured, who comes and goes, where Penelope spent her time, where the women sleep, where servants gather. A battlefield is easier when the enemy stands beneath banners. A household is more complicated. Every corridor contains history. Every face may conceal allegiance. You remember Athena's warning from the shore. Some servants have betrayed you. Others remained loyal. The goddess could simply tell you every name. She does not. Why? Perhaps because judgment requires witnessing. Perhaps because a king who has been absent for 20 years must see his kingdom before deciding its fate. Or perhaps the old poem understands that knowledge handed down by a god is less meaningful than knowledge discovered through human experience. Historians continue to debate how much the social world of the Odyssey reflects actual institutions from the centuries through which the epic developed. But the household at its centre is unmistakably more than a private home. It is an economic centre, a political symbol, a place of ritual, inheritance, authority, and memory. To seize the household is to challenge the man who stands at its centre. The suitors have been doing precisely that. The fire burns lower. You quietly repeat your instructions to Telemachus when Eumaeus steps away. The weapons must disappear. Your son must take the spears and shields from the hall and store them elsewhere. If the suitors ask why, he must lie. Smoke has damaged the bronze, or perhaps he fears that wine will lead to violence. Both explanations are believable. The suitors drink heavily. Arguments happen. Weapons hanging nearby could transform insult into bloodshed. Telemachus nods. You tell him to leave only what the two of you will need. 2 swords, 2 spears, 2 shields. It sounds almost absurd. More than 100 opponents. Weapons for 2 men. But numbers alone do not determine a fight inside a confined hall. Doors matter. Surprise matters. Confusion matters. And above everything else, Athena matters. You remind Telemachus that the goddess has guided both of you. She brought him safely home. She hid Ithaca beneath mist. She transformed you. She arranged your meeting. The pattern resembles an omen unfolding slowly rather than a single sign appearing in the sky. Still, Telemachus asks the question any sensible man would ask. Will the gods truly help when the killing begins? You cannot answer with certainty. You believe Athena will. But you have lived too long among gods to confuse favour with predictability. Poseidon hated you. Athena protected you. Zeus sometimes sent signs and sometimes allowed storms. Calypso offered love and captivity in the same breath. Divine attention is not simple comfort. Ancient Greeks didn't imagine their gods as endlessly gentle guardians. Divine powers could protect, punish, deceive, desire, quarrel, and withdraw. A mortal lived beneath forces larger than himself. Wisdom meant respecting that fact. So you tell Telemachus what mortals can do. Prepare, wait, watch, act when the moment arrives. There is another part of the plan. He must endure seeing you humiliated. You emphasize this again. The suitors will believe you are powerless. Some may mock you. Some may throw objects. Some may strike you. Telemachus must not immediately defend you. You can see how difficult this is for him. He has only just found you. For years he was unable to defend your reputation from men eating at your table. Now you are asking him to watch them abuse you physically. But anger revealed too early will expose the bond between you. The lesson is cruel. It is also one you know well. There was a time when you could not resist telling Polyphemus your name. That shout across the sea became Poseidon's curse. You remember the Cyclops raising his arms toward the sky, calling upon his father to prevent your homecoming, or, if fate required you to reach Ithaca, to make that return late, alone, broken, and surrounded by trouble. Late, alone, after losing your companions, and trouble waiting at home. The curse has been fulfilled with frightening precision. Yet perhaps curses, like prophecies, contain boundaries. Polyphemus asked that suffering accompany your return. He did not say what happens after you arrive. That future remains yours to shape. A sudden sound comes from outside. The dogs lift their heads. You listen. Nothing. Only wind moving through the enclosure. Still, for a moment, everyone is silent. In a world filled with omens, even ordinary sounds can feel meaningful when danger is close. Then Eumaeus returns to the fire. Conversation becomes ordinary again. Food, animals, the journey, the palace. But beneath every sentence, you and Telemachus now share a secret. That secret changes the room. Later, when the hut grows quiet, you lie awake. You think of Penelope. Tomorrow your son will see her. Soon you will too. But she cannot know you yet. You imagine walking past your wife while wearing the face of a stranger. Will she sense anything? Will your voice betray you? Will she recognize some movement of your hands? You do not know. The uncertainty troubles you more than you expected. A monster can be planned for. Love is harder. Outside, the night is clear. Stars spread above the hills, bright in the absence of city lights. The sea lies somewhere beyond the dark ridges, invisible but audible when the wind turns. The same stars once guided you toward Troy, then away from it. Now they hang above your own island. You close your eyes. Tomorrow begins the final stage of your return. Not the return to Ithaca. That has already happened. The return to your household, to your name, to Penelope, to the authority that time has placed in question. And somewhere below, the suitors are probably sleeping after another feast, confident that tomorrow will resemble yesterday. They do not yet understand the warning written into every ancient story of pride. A household can endure disorder for a long time, but the longer judgment waits, the easier it becomes to mistake delay for escape. Morning is coming, and with it, Telemachus will walk back into the palace carrying a secret powerful enough to change the fate of everyone inside. Morning rises over Ithaca with a quietness that almost feels unnatural. The island wakes slowly. Mist rests in the valleys between hills. Olive branches shimmer beneath droplets of morning moisture. The sea beyond the cliffs reflects the first pale light of the sun, and fishing boats appear like small shadows moving across silver water. For most people on the island, this is simply another day. Farmers walk toward their fields. Shepherds guide animals along familiar paths. Women prepare bread beside household fires. Children carry water from springs. The world continues as it always has. But beneath this ordinary morning lies a secret that will soon reshape Ithaca. A king has returned. A son has found his father. And a palace full of men who believe they are safe is moving toward its final day. You watch Telemachus prepare to leave the swineherd's hut. For the first time, you see him not as the infant you carried in memory, but as the man standing before you. He carries himself differently now. The journey to Pylos and Sparta changed him. The threat from the suitors changed him. And perhaps, most of all, meeting you changed him. A son who spent years waiting for answers now carries a secret that even the most powerful men of Ithaca do not know. He must return alone, at least outwardly. He must walk into the palace as though nothing unusual has happened. No excitement, no hesitation, no sign that the missing king is only a short distance away. This is the difficult art Athena has taught both of you. To hide what matters most. After Telemachus departs, you prepare to follow later with Eumaeus. The old beggar returns. Your shoulders lower. Your face becomes aged. The warrior disappears beneath poverty again. It is strange how quickly a person can become another version of themselves. Yet perhaps this is one of the deepest themes of your journey. Who are you when the world no longer recognizes you? At Troy, you were the famous strategist. Among the Phaeacians, you were the mysterious stranger. On Calypso's island, you were the grieving captive. Among the Cyclops, you were nobody. Now in Ithaca, you are a beggar. The names change. The appearance changes, but something remains. The mind, the memories, the longing, the part of you that still belongs to Ithaca. You and Eumaeus begin walking down from the hills. The road is familiar to him. He moves easily through the countryside. You notice how much he belongs to this land. He knows where the paths divide. He knows which fields belong to which families. He knows the condition of the animals and the habits of the people. A loyal servant is not merely someone who obeys. A loyal servant carries the memory of a household. As you descend, the palace becomes closer. You begin seeing signs of wealth. Better roads, larger fields, more carefully maintained walls. The difference between the countryside and the palace reflects the imbalance created by your absence. The household that should have protected the island has become a place of consumption. The suitors are not building, they are taking. Ancient Greek audiences would have recognized the danger immediately. A ruler's household was expected to distribute wealth and maintain order. The Great Hall was not only a private dining room, it was a center of relationships between noble families, servants, guests, and the wider community. When the household collapses, the community feels the disturbance. A king's return is therefore not simply personal. It is political. It is religious. It is a restoration of balance. Along the road, you encounter Melanthius, the goat herder. At first glance, he seems like a minor figure, but his appearance carries a warning. He does not greet you with kindness. He sees only an old beggar, someone beneath his attention. He insults you. He mocks your clothing. He questions why you're coming toward the palace. His words reveal something important. Those who have gained comfort from disorder often defend that disorder. Melanthius benefits from the new arrangement. The suitors reward him. He has chosen the powerful side. You do not respond with anger. Not yet. That restraint would have been almost impossible for the man who fought at Troy. But years of suffering have changed you. You know the difference between a battle you must fight and a battle you must survive. Eumaeus protects you with words. He reminds Melanthius that insulting strangers is dangerous. The old laws still exist, even if some people ignore them. The encounter passes, but you remember it. Every word, every face, every betrayal. A king returning after 20 years cannot simply reclaim a throne. He must understand the kingdom that developed without him. The palace comes closer. You can almost smell it. Smoke from cooking fires, roasting meat, wine, perfumed oils, the sense of wealth. Yet beneath them, perhaps, another smell. Decay, not physical decay, moral decay. A household can appear magnificent while collapsing from within. You reach the entrance. There, lying near the doorway, is a dog. At first, you barely recognize him. The animal is old, weak, covered in neglect. He lies among refuse while servants move around him without care. Then you see the eyes, and everything changes. Argos, your dog, the companion of your youth, the hunting dog who once followed you through Ithacan fields, the creature who knew you before Troy, before the songs, before the suffering, before the world turned you into a wandering legend. Now he lies abandoned. 20 years have passed for him too. You stop. For a moment, the disguise almost fails. Your emotions rise. This animal recognizes what no human has recognized. Not the clothing, not the age, not the false identity. You! Argos lifts his head. His ears move. His body tries to rise. But age has taken too much. He cannot stand. Still, his eyes tell the truth. Ancient audiences would have understood the powerful symbolism of this moment. Animals in Greek stories often perceive realities humans ignore. They respond to hidden identity, divine presence, or emotional truth. Argos represents a bond untouched by politics, ambition, and deception. He does not care about the years. He does not care about the disguise. He knows his master. You turn away so others will not see your tears. Eumaeus does not notice. The servants do not notice. The suitors inside continue their feast. But you feel something that victory cannot provide. Recognition. Then Argos closes his eyes. The dog who waited 20 years has finally seen what he waited for. And he dies, quietly, without ceremony, without songs. His entire purpose completed in one final moment. You continue toward the palace. But something inside you has changed. Before, you were returning to reclaim what was yours. Now you understand something more painful. Return does not erase loss. You can regain your home. You can defeat your enemies. You can hold Penelope again. But you cannot recover every year that disappeared. The road ends at the palace entrance. The great doors stand ahead. Inside are the men who have taken your place. Outside stands the man they believe is nothing. A beggar. A stranger. Someone who can be ignored. And that is exactly why Athena's plan can succeed. You step across the threshold. The final test begins. You stand at the entrance of your own palace. Yet the first creature to welcome you home is not a servant, not a friend, not your wife, and not your son. It is a dying dog. Argos lies beneath the shadow of the great hall, forgotten among the dust and refuse. The palace rises around him with all the signs of wealth and power. But the old animal rests where no honoured creature should rest. You have crossed oceans. You have survived monsters. You have escaped the anger of gods. Yet this quiet moment wounds you more deeply than many battles. Because Argos remembers, the palace does not. You remain still for a moment, careful not to reveal what moves inside you. The old beggar cannot suddenly show the grief of a king. The stranger cannot mourn openly for the companion of his youth. So you lower your eyes. You pretend not to notice. But you do notice everything. The faded fur, the weakened body, the way his breathing has become slow, the marks of years spent waiting. 20 years is a lifetime for a dog, and yet somehow he waited, in ancient Greek storytelling. Animals often exist close to the hidden truths of the world. They do not understand politics, reputation, or human deception. They do not care who sits on a throne or who wears fine clothing. Argos knows only loyalty. He knew you when you were young, before Troy, before the long voyage, before songs transformed you into something larger than a man. He knew the person beneath the name, and perhaps that is why this moment carries such power. Everyone else must be convinced. Argos does not need proof. You remember him as a puppy. You remember the energy of youth, the excitement of the hunt, the way he moved through Ithaca's fields with strength and confidence. Perhaps he followed you along mountain paths. Perhaps he waited near the gates when you returned from journeys. Those memories arrive quickly. Too quickly, because memory does not move like ordinary time. 20 years can disappear in a single breath when a forgotten face returns. But Argos has not returned to youth. Neither have you. That is the painful truth hidden inside the reunion. You have both changed. You have become older. You have become strangers to the world that once knew you. The dog dies because his waiting is complete. You live because your waiting is not. A servant notices nothing. He continues with his work. The palace moves around you. Footsteps echo across stone. Voices rise from the great hall. The smell of roasted meat drifts outward. Wine spills. Men laugh. The suitors feast. They do not know the king is standing outside. They do not know the old beggar they barely notice carries memories of every room, every servant, every corner of the household. They do not know the first judgment has already taken place. Argos has seen you. That is enough. You enter. The contrast between outside and inside is immediate. The doorway separates two worlds. Outside lies the quiet countryside, the fields, the animals, the loyal servant, the old dog. Inside lies excess. Torches burn along the walls. Smoke rises toward the wooden beams. Bronze vessels shine beneath the firelight. Tables overflow with food. The sound of conversation fills the hall. At first glance, it appears magnificent. But you recognize something beneath the beauty. A palace without its rightful order is only decoration. The suitors sit where they should not sit. They eat what they did not earn. They command servants who do not belong to them. They behave as though the absence of the king has granted them permission. And perhaps that is the most dangerous kind of corruption. Not destruction. Replacement. They are not trying to burn your house. They are trying to become your house. Telemachus sees you enter. His expression does not change. He has learned the discipline you required. A few days earlier, he might have rushed toward you. Now he remains composed. The transformation is subtle but important. He is no longer only waiting for his father's return. He is participating in it. Athena's influence can be seen not only through miracles but through growth. She does not simply rescue heroes, she prepares them. Across Greek myths, wisdom often appears through preparation rather than sudden victory. A warrior may possess courage, but without judgment, courage becomes recklessness. You learned this painfully. Telemachus is learning it now. You move among the suitors. No one recognizes you. Some ignore you completely, others look with amusement. A beggar inside a wealthy hall is not unusual in the ancient world. Travellers, petitioners, and poor strangers might appear at the doors of households seeking food or protection, but the treatment of such strangers revealed character. This is the test Athena has created, not a test of strength, a test of humanity. Will these men honour the laws of hospitality, or will they reveal themselves? A man named Antinous notices you. Among the suitors, he is one of the most aggressive. He represents a different kind of threat, not merely desire for Penelope, desire for power. He does not see a hungry traveller. He sees an inconvenience, a reminder that the palace contains responsibilities he does not wish to carry. You approach, asking for food. Your request is not demanding. You know the rules of the world you are testing. A guest asks. A host gives. Antinous could simply refuse. Instead, he chooses cruelty. Before he acts, however, you observe the hall carefully. The arrangement, the faces, the mood. You are gathering information. This is what makes your return different from a simple revenge story. You are not charging into the palace with anger. You are studying it. The warrior of Troy has become the patient survivor of Ithaca. Outside, thunder does not announce your arrival. No god appears before the crowd. The moment remains quiet, and that quietness creates a deeper mystery. How many times had you imagined this day? Did you imagine applause? Did you imagine servants falling before you? Did you imagine Penelope running into your arms? Instead, your first hours home are spent disguised, insulted, and unseen. Perhaps this is necessary. Perhaps a king must first learn what his kingdom became when he was gone. The ancient audience would understand another layer as well. The gods often hide important truths from mortals. A person may stand beside destiny without recognizing it. The suitors eat beneath the roof of the man they fear. The servants walk past the master they forgot. A wife waits for the husband she cannot see. And a son stands beside his father while pretending not to know him. The entire palace is filled with hidden identities. You're not the only one pretending. The question is no longer whether you can return. You already have. The question is what kind of world you'll find when the disguise finally falls. A torch flickers. The hall grows louder. Antinous reaches toward his weapon. The first true test of your patience is about to begin. You remain standing among the noise of your own palace, surrounded by men who believe they have the right to judge you. The irony is almost impossible to ignore. The man they mock is the very person whose wealth allows their feast to continue. The roof above them was raised for your household. The stone beneath their feet belongs to your ancestors. The animals roasting over the fire came from your fields. Yet they look at you and see only a poor old wanderer, a stranger, someone beneath their attention. This is the strange power of disguise. It does not only hide your identity from others, it allows you to see them without the influence of your name. For years, men have spoken about Odysseus, the brilliant warrior, the clever king, the hero of Troy. But now, without that reputation surrounding you, you discover what people truly believe when they think you have no power. The great hall continues around you. Torch flames tremble against the walls. Smoke rises toward the beams, darkened by years of fires. The smell of roasted meat fills the air. Wine flows freely. The suitors recline comfortably, laughing among themselves. They have created a world where consequence seems impossible. That is often the beginning of downfall, not when people become powerful. When they begin believing power protects them from judgment. You move through the hall quietly. You accept what is offered. You endure what is not. Every insult becomes information. Every careless word becomes evidence. Ancient Greek audiences would have recognized this as one of the central ideas surrounding your character. Cunning is not simply lying. It is the ability to understand hidden situations. A warrior sees enemies in front of him. A strategist sees the entire field. And here, your battlefield is a dining hall. The first lesson becomes clear. The suitors are divided. Some are arrogant. Some are cruel. Some follow because others lead. Some laugh because everyone else laughs. You observe them as a king should, not with blind anger, with judgment. Still, the emotions beneath your patience are difficult to control. You see men sitting where your closest companions once sat. You see them wasting what your household preserved. You hear them speaking casually about Penelope, the woman who waited, the woman who protected your home, the woman who's endured years of pressure while strangers consumed your wealth. Your hands tighten beneath the worn cloak. But you remember Athena? Wait, the goddess's instruction echoes within you. Wait, that single word may be harder than any battle you fought. At Troy, you faced walls and armies. On the sea, you faced storms and monsters. But here, your enemy is your own desire to act. A man can defeat another man. A man struggles to defeat himself. One of the suitors notices your presence. Antinous. You recognize immediately why Athena warned you about him. He is not simply another young noble seeking Penelope. He carries himself as though the household already belongs to him. He has the confidence of someone who has never been denied. His eyes do not show curiosity. They show annoyance. To him, you're not a person. You are a disruption. A servant approaches with food. Some guests receive generous portions. Others receive little. You notice how quickly status determines kindness. The poor are treated according to what others think they deserve. This too becomes part of the test. A stranger arrives. How will they respond? Ancient Greek culture placed enormous importance on hospitality because travel was dangerous. A person leaving home could easily become dependent upon the kindness of others. Roads were uncertain. Seas were unpredictable. Political boundaries shifted. The stranger at your door might be a traveller, a refugee, a messenger, or, according to religious belief, even a god in disguise. Zeus himself was associated with protecting guests and strangers. To insult a helpless visitor was therefore not merely rude, it was dangerous. But Antinous does not think about danger. He thinks only about control. You approach him. Your voice remains calm. You ask for a small portion of food, not because you need it, because you are testing him, because the old laws of hospitality are being placed before him one final time. He could pass. He could give. He could show restraint. Instead, he chooses contempt. He questions why you are wandering through the hall. He suggests that beggars deserve little. His companions laugh. The sound fills the room. A strange thing happens in that moment. You realize you're seeing exactly what Athena wanted you to see. Not simply enemies, a moral failure. These men are not doomed because they want Penelope. They are doomed because they have forgotten limits. They have forgotten respect. They have forgotten the difference between invitation and invasion. A palace can survive poverty. It can survive enemies at the border. But it cannot survive when those inside no longer recognize what is sacred. The tension grows. Telemachus watches. You know he wants to react. You can feel it. His hands move slightly. His body leans forward. But he stops. He obeys. That small act may be one of the greatest victories of the day. Not the defeat of an enemy. The control of a son's anger. You look at him briefly. Only briefly. Enough to acknowledge. Enough to remind him that the plan continues. Outside, clouds gather over Ithaca. The weather shifts. A distant rumble moves across the sea. The ancient Greeks often saw storms and thunder as signs connected to Zeus, especially when they appeared near moments of decision. Whether such events were divine messages or natural occurrences was a question every generation interpreted differently. But inside the hall, everyone notices. The laughter quiets for a moment. Even the suitors feel something. A pause, a shadow, a reminder that they are not beyond the reach of forces greater than themselves. Then the sound passes, the feast continues. That is often how warnings appear, not as commands, as moments people choose whether to understand. The suitors return to eating. You remain standing, still hidden, still waiting, and you begin to understand something painful. The hardest part of returning home is not reaching the destination. It is standing inside it and watching what has changed. You have dreamed of this hall for 20 years. You imagine the comfort of familiar walls. Instead, you find strangers occupying your memories. Yet beneath the anger, another emotion begins to appear. Determination. Because this is not merely about revenge. It is about restoration. About returning balance to a household that has lost itself. The day continues. More guests arrive. More conversations unfold. More pieces of the puzzle become visible. And with every moment, the disguise becomes both a burden and a shield. No one knows you. No one fears you. No one respects you. But that also means no one is prepared for you. The stranger they ignore is the storm approaching. The old beggar they mock carries the memory of 20 years. And when the moment finally arrives, the hall will discover that the man they refused to honor was the only person who truly belonged there. The great hall grows louder as the day continues. The suitors settle deeper into their confidence. They drink. They laugh. They compete for attention. The palace that once carried the dignity of your household has become a place where noise replaces order. You stand among them quietly, wrapped in the identity of a poor old traveller. This is the strange position Athena has placed you in. You are the most important man in the room. Yet everyone believes you are the least important. A king without a crown, a warrior without a weapon, a husband without a name, a father without recognition. And because they do not know who you are, they reveal who they are. That is the true purpose of the disguise. Not only protection, discovery. You continue watching. Some of the suitors ignore you. Others offer small pieces of food, more from social expectation than kindness. A few show sympathy, but none understand the full meaning of the moment. They are all being tested, not by your strength, by their behavior towards someone who cannot reward them. This idea would have carried great importance for ancient Greek audiences. A person's character was not measured only by how they treated equals. It was revealed by how they treated those beneath them. The stranger, the poor, the powerless, the person who could offer nothing in return. Zeus, protector of guests and strangers, stood behind this moral expectation. Hospitality was not simply a custom. It was a sacred obligation. Yet the suitors have spent years violating it. They have taken without giving, consumed without gratitude, demanded without restraint. Their feast is not a celebration. It is a slow act of disrespect. Then Antinous turns his attention toward you again. He is one of the most influential among them. Young, wealthy, confident, and dangerous precisely because he believes himself reasonable. Many cruel people do not imagine themselves cruel. They simply believe the world owes them what they desire. Antinous sees your presence as an inconvenience. The palace is his temporary kingdom. Every beggar who enters reminds him that the household does not truly belong to him. You approach him once more. You do not ask for much. A little food, a small offering, enough to see whether he understands the basic rule of hospitality. For a moment the hall watches. Perhaps some expect him to give. Perhaps some expect entertainment. The suitors have turned suffering into amusement. That too is a sign of their corruption. You speak calmly. You tell him you have wandered through many lands. You explain that fortune changes quickly. The wealthy today may become the poor tomorrow. The powerful may become helpless. This is not only a request, it is wisdom, a reminder of the uncertainty that defines mortal life. Ancient Greeks were deeply aware of this instability. Kings could fall. Cities could be destroyed. Heroes could die. The gods alone existed beyond the limits of ordinary human fortune. Your own life proves the lesson. You were once a respected king, then a shipwrecked survivor, then a captive, then a nameless wanderer. Fortune turns like the sea, But Antinous does not listen. He responds with anger. He complains that beggars should not interrupt a feast. He speaks as though poverty itself is a crime. You remain calm. Inside, however, something burns, not because you are hungry, not because he insults you personally, because you see what has happened to your household. A man who should protect guests now humiliates them. A nobleman who should understand responsibility now celebrates arrogance. The failure is larger than one insult. It represents the collapse of order. Then Antinous does something that reveals the depth of his character. He lifts a stool. The hall becomes silent for a moment. Even some of the suitors seem uncertain. Perhaps they expected words, not violence. But Antinous has already chosen. He throws the stool. It strikes you. The pain is real. Your body reacts. Your instinct is immediate. For a heartbeat, the warrior of Troy returns. The man who fought beneath the walls of Ilium. The man who faced armies. The man who survived the Cyclops. Your hand almost moves. Your mind calculates. Distance. Weapons. Enemies. Opportunity. The old instincts are still there. They never left. But another voice speaks louder. Wait, you control yourself. This may be one of your greatest victories. Not defeating an enemy. Refusing to become ruled by anger. You remember what happened with Polyphemus. You remember the cost of a moment of pride. You escaped the cave. You were free, but you needed the Cyclops to know your name. That single decision transformed victory into suffering. The sea god heard his son's pain, and your journey became a punishment that lasted years. Now you stand in another moment where anger could destroy everything. The lesson has finally reached its conclusion. The strongest warrior is not the one who strikes first. It is the one who knows when not to strike. The hall reacts differently. Some laugh. Some are uncomfortable. Some recognize that what happened was wrong. A wandering stranger has been attacked in a house that claims to be civilized. One suitor, Amphinomus, shows a different response. He is not innocent. He is still part of the group consuming your wealth. But unlike Antinous, he understands that something has gone too far. He offers food. He tries to calm the situation. This small moment creates an important question. Are all the suitors equally responsible? The ancient story leaves room for complexity. Some men are openly cruel. Others are weaker, following the crowd. Some recognize wrongdoing but lack the courage to oppose it. History often remembers individuals more clearly than societies do. But moral choices are usually made by ordinary people in ordinary moments. A man decides whether to laugh, whether to remain silent, whether to help, whether to walk away. Outside, a sudden wind moves through Ithaca. The torches flicker. The shadows on the walls stretch and shift. It feels almost as though the palace itself is waiting. In Greek tradition, divine signs often appear through the natural world. Thunder, birds, dreams, unusual events, whether interpreted as messages from the gods or moments later given meaning by humans. Such signs create a feeling that unseen forces are moving beneath ordinary events. The day is not finished. The test continues. You have entered your own palace. You have seen the arrogance of the men who occupy it. You have endured humiliation, and still your identity remains hidden. But another person has been watching, someone whose opinion matters more than any suitor. Someone who has spent years waiting in these very halls. Penelope. She has heard that a strange beggar has arrived. She has heard rumors of your kindness. She has heard that this old traveler speaks differently from ordinary wanderers. Soon, she will ask to meet you. Soon, husband and wife will stand close enough to touch. Yet she will not know. Not immediately. The woman who waited 20 years will face the man she waited for while believing he is someone else. And perhaps that is the final test of all. Not whether you can return, whether you can be patient enough to return completely. Night begins to settle over Ithaca, but inside the palace, the torches continue burning. Their flames move gently against the stone walls. The smell of roasted meat still lingers. Wine cups remain scattered across tables. The voices of the suitors rise and fall like waves against a shore. But beneath the noise, another presence moves quietly through the halls. Penelope, for 20 years, she has lived inside a world of uncertainty. She's been a queen without a king, a wife without confirmation, a mother trying to protect a household that no longer fully obeys her. And tonight, without knowing it, she's closer to Odysseus than she has been since the day his ship disappeared beyond the horizon. You remain below among strangers. She remains above, separated from you by walls and years. Yet both of you are carrying the same invisible weight. Memory. Penelope has heard about the stranger who entered the palace. A beggar, an old traveller, someone who has suffered. At first, such a person may seem insignificant. The palace receives many visitors. But something about this stranger has drawn attention. The way he speaks, the way he carries himself, the way he responds to insult without losing control. These details reach Penelope, and after 20 years of surviving through careful observation, she's learned not to ignore unusual things. She is not the woman simply waiting beside a window. That image, though beautiful, is incomplete. The Penelope of the Odyssey is intelligent, strategic, a person who survives through patience. Her famous weaving deception reveals this. Every day she worked on a burial cloth for Laertes, promising the suitors she would choose a husband once it was complete. Every night she secretly unravelled the work. The loom became her battlefield, thread became her weapon, time became her shield. When deception was discovered, the pressure only increased, but she continued, because she understood something you understand as well. Sometimes survival depends not on defeating your enemy. Sometimes it depends on delaying them. This is why the two of you are so closely connected. You survive through disguises. She survives through postponement. You hide your identity. She hides her intentions. Both of you understand the value of waiting. Ancient Greek audiences would have recognized this as a remarkable partnership between husband and wife. The epic world often celebrates warriors and heroes, but Penelope's intelligence is a different kind of strength. Her battlefield is domestic. Her enemies are social pressure and uncertainty. Her victory is endurance. She enters the hall carefully. The atmosphere changes slightly. Even the suitors who disrespect her still understand her position. She is the woman they hope to marry, the key to the household, the symbol of legitimacy. Without Penelope choosing one of them, their claim remains incomplete. You see her after 20 years. The first sight of your wife is not a dramatic reunion. No embrace, no tears, no words of recognition, only distance. A woman walking through a torchlit hall, a stranger watching from among servants and unwanted guests. You feel the weight of the moment. This is the person whose image carried you across the sea. When Calypso offered immortality, you thought of Ithaca. When storms pushed your ship away from home, you thought of Penelope. When exhaustion nearly defeated you, the memory of this household kept you moving. Yet now she is here, and you cannot tell her. That restraint may be the hardest thing you have ever done. You have faced monsters who wanted to kill you. You have faced gods who wanted to delay you. But facing the person you love while pretending not to know her requires another kind of courage. A quieter courage. Penelope speaks with the servants. She asks about the stranger. She wants him brought to her. But before that meeting occurs, she observes. She listens. She gathers information. Perhaps she senses something. Perhaps she simply knows that strangers often carry stories, and stories reveal truth. The palace has become a place of false appearances. The suitors pretend they are guests. You pretend you are a beggar. Penelope pretends she's still helpless. Everyone is performing a role. The question is who can see beyond the performance. Outside, the moon rises above Ithaca. Its light touches the rooftops and olive trees. The same moon may have watched you during your years at sea. The same stars may have looked down upon Penelope as she waited. Ancient storytellers often use the heavens as symbols of continuity. Human lives change. Generations pass. Cities rise and fall. But the stars remain. They witness what mortals endure. Then Penelope begins preparing for the meeting. She orders a seat placed for the stranger. Not a throne, not a position of honor, but a place of respect. Even after years of pressure, she has not forgotten the obligations of hospitality. This small action reveals her character. She does not know who you are. She does not know whether this stranger can help her, but she knows he's a guest, and that matters. You notice this. Perhaps this is the first moment since entering the palace when you feel something like relief. The household has not completely died. Something sacred remains. Penelope still understands. She still carries the values of the home you left. The fire still burns. The foundation is damaged, but it is not destroyed. A mystery remains, however. Why does Penelope choose to meet this stranger personally? Is it simply curiosity? Does she suspect something? Does fate guide her steps? Ancient interpretations have offered many possibilities. Some readers see a woman testing hope carefully after years of disappointment. Others see a deeper intuition, the sense that something familiar exists beneath a stranger's appearance. The poem never gives a simple answer. Perhaps that uncertainty is what makes the moment powerful. Love does not always recognize immediately. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it questions. Sometimes it must discover the truth slowly. The servants prepare the room. The torches burn brighter. The palace grows quieter. Soon you'll sit before Penelope. You will speak to her. You will hear her describe the pain of waiting. And she will listen to a stranger whose words contain memories only her husband could know. But for now, you remain separated. A few steps, a few walls, 20 years. The woman you crossed the world to reach is finally near. And still you must wait, because the final victory cannot come from simply revealing your name. It must come when the truth can survive. The night deepens over the palace, and beneath the flickering torchlight, the people of Ithaca begin to sense that something unseen is approaching. No army stands outside the walls. No enemy ship appears on the horizon. No messenger arrives carrying a declaration of war. Yet the atmosphere has changed. The kind of silence that comes before a storm settles over the household. You have felt this sensation before. Before Troy. Before storms at sea. Before moments when the gods moved their pieces across the world. The ancient Greeks often imagined fate not as a single road that mortals simply walked, but as something revealed gradually through signs, choices, and consequences. A prophecy might exist, yet human actions determined how that destiny unfolded. And now Ithaca is filled with signs. Some are noticed, some are ignored, some are understood only afterward. The first warning comes through the atmosphere itself. The palace feels different. The suitors still laugh, but their laughter carries less certainty. The feast continues, but the ease has disappeared. Even men who have never feared consequences begin to feel the weight of something they cannot name. Perhaps it is because Telemachus has returned. Perhaps it is because the stranger in the hall does not behave like an ordinary beggar. Or perhaps, as ancient listeners would believe, the gods have begun making their presence known. You remain among them quietly, watching, waiting. You have spent years learning how to recognize danger before it appears. A sailor watches the color of the sky. A warrior watches the movement of an enemy. A king watches the hearts of his people. And now you watch the suitors. You notice how they speak about Telemachus, not as a young man, as a threat. That reveals everything. They do not fear him because he commands an army. He does not. They fear him because he represents continuity. The household still has an heir. The name of Odysseus is not finished. The line they hoped would disappear remains alive. Inside the palace, another figure begins to speak. The seer Theoclymenus. He has travelled to Ithaca with Telemachus, and carries the ancient reputation of someone able to perceive things hidden from ordinary sight. In Greek tradition, seers occupy a strange position. They are not simply fortune-tellers. They are interpreters of divine communication. They observe birds, dreams, unusual events, and patterns that others overlook. Their knowledge is never entirely comfortable, because prophecy often reveals truths people do not want to hear. Theoclymenus looks upon the suitors, and he sees something terrifying. He sees death surrounding them. The exact meaning of such visions has fascinated generations of readers. Are they literal glimpses of the future, symbolic expressions of guilt and corruption, literary signs showing that judgment is approaching? Different interpretations exist, but within the world of the poem, the warning is clear. Something terrible is coming. The suitors laugh. They do not believe him. This reaction is important. Warnings are often most powerful when they are ignored. The Cyclops ignored signs of your intelligence. The Trojans ignored warnings surrounding the wooden horse. The suitors ignore the signs surrounding their own destruction. Pride creates blindness. You understand this better than anyone. You survived because you learned. The men around you are failing because they refuse to learn. A strange event occurs during the meal. An omen appears. A sign connected with Zeus. The exact details belong to the world of interpretation, where birds, weather, and unusual occurrences carried possible meaning. The suitors notice, but they dismiss it. They have spent too long believing that fortune belongs permanently to them. They have mistaken delay for safety. Outside, thunder rolls across the sky. The sound moves over the hills of Ithaca. Torches flicker. The great hall briefly darkens. For a moment, everyone looks upward. Even those who do not believe feel the need to look, because humans have always searched the sky during uncertain moments. The heavens are distant, but they are also always present. Ancient Greek religion placed Zeus among the powers associated with thunder, storms, justice, and authority. A storm was not merely weather. It could be interpreted as a reminder that mortals existed beneath forces larger than themselves. The suitors continue eating. That may be their greatest mistake. Not ignorance. Refusal. They receive warnings and choose comfort instead. You observe this quietly. A part of you wants to reveal yourself immediately, to stand before them, to say your name, to show them the man they mocked. But patience still holds you. The final moment has not arrived, and perhaps that is why Athena has guided you this far. She knows something about victory. A victory gained too early can become defeat. The same intelligence that helped you escape Troy must now help you reclaim Ithaca. The palace grows darker as night advances. Penelope remains nearby. Telemachus remains prepared. Eumaeus waits. The faithful and the faithless now occupy the same house. The boundary between them is becoming clearer. Then another sign appears. A stranger enters the hall. Someone whose presence seems ordinary. But ordinary things have become difficult to trust. A man can appear poor and be a king. A woman can appear powerless and be the strongest person in the household. A beggar can carry the future of an island. The entire palace has become a place where appearance and reality no longer match. That is the central mystery surrounding your return. Who sees the truth? Who refuses to see it? The gods may send signs, but mortals still choose whether to listen. As the night grows colder, you prepare yourself for the next encounter. Soon, Penelope will sit before you. Soon, you will tell her a story. Not your story. Not yet. A carefully crafted version. A bridge between truth and secrecy. And while you prepare your words, somewhere beyond the palace walls, Ithaca's future waits beneath the stars. The prophecy has been spoken. The omens have appeared. The warning has been delivered. Only the final choices remain. The chamber where Penelope receives you is quieter than the great hall. The noise of the suitors fades behind the walls. The voices become distant. The laughter becomes a low murmur. For the first time since entering your palace, you are separated from the chaos surrounding you. You sit before your wife, and she does not know you. The moment you imagined for 20 years has arrived in a form you never expected. Not beneath the open sky. Not with a ship entering the harbour. Not with servants rushing to announce your return. Instead, you sit in worn clothing beside a fire, appearing as an old wanderer who has lost everything. And across from you sits Penelope. Older, changed, but still unmistakably the person whose memory carried you through the darkest moments of your journey. The firelight moves across her face. You notice details that distance had transformed into dreams. The expression around her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture, the way she listens before speaking. You realize something painful. You know the woman you left, but you must now discover the woman who waited. 20 years have shaped her just as they shaped you. She begins with courtesy. She asks about your journey, where you came from, what hardships brought you to Ithaca. Her voice is calm, careful. She has spent years surrounded by deception. The suitors lie to her constantly. False travellers arrive with false stories. Promises are made and broken. She has learned that every word must be examined. In another life, perhaps you would admire this quality from a distance. Now you recognize it because it belongs to you as well. You are both survivors through caution. You begin your story. Like all your disguises, it contains invention. But beneath the invention lies truth. You describe distant lands, storms, dangers, encounters with powerful people. You speak of suffering and wandering. Penelope listens closely. She does not interrupt. She does not immediately believe. But she does something rare. She gives your word space. The ancient world valued the ability to listen because speech was one of the primary ways people preserved memory. Before written histories became widely available, stories carried identity across generations. A person's reputation depended on the stories told about them. You know this better than anyone. Your own name survived through songs, but songs can preserve truth and transform it at the same time. The Odysseus remembered by others is not exactly the man sitting before Penelope. He is larger, more heroic, more distant. She is meeting the person behind the legend, even if she does not know it. You tell her about Crete, about a man who encountered Odysseus, about a king who may still be alive. You place hints within the story, small pieces, fragments, details that only someone close to you might understand. The colour of clothing, the companions who sailed with you, the places you visited, the treasures you carried. Penelope studies you. Something about your words reaches beyond ordinary storytelling. A stranger could invent a name. A stranger could invent a journey. But could a stranger recreate the feeling of someone who truly knew her husband? That is the mystery between you. Ancient audiences understood recognition as something deeper than appearance. A person could be identified through scars, objects, memories, habits, and private knowledge. The body could be disguised. The truth could still emerge through details. Penelope speaks of Odysseus, not as a legend, as a person. She remembers his intelligence, his patience, his ability to adapt, but she also remembers his absence. That is the part songs often forget. Heroes leave behind people who must continue living. While you travelled across seas, she remained with uncertainty. She could not fight monsters. She could not command ships. Her battles were quieter. The pressure of choosing another husband, the fear of losing her son, the responsibility of preserving your household. She describes a dream, a strange dream involving 20 geese inside her courtyard. The geese were fed and protected by her. Then suddenly, an eagle descended and killed them all. In the dream, the eagle later revealed itself as Odysseus returning to destroy the suitors. Dreams held great importance in Greek tradition. They could be meaningless images created by the mind, or they could carry messages from the gods. The poem itself explores this uncertainty. Not every dream is true. Not every sign is understood correctly. The challenge is interpretation. Penelope does not know what to make of it. She feels both hope and fear, because a dream of return also becomes a dream of violence. If Odysseus comes home, the world cannot simply return to how it was. Justice must follow. The suitors cannot remain. The household must change. You listen carefully. The dream affects you deeply, because she speaks of you without knowing you are there. The eagle, the geese, the destruction of those who consume the household, a prophecy hidden inside a dream, a warning disguised as an image. You wonder whether the gods have already begun revealing the future to her, or whether human beings create symbols because they are trying to understand impossible emotions. Historians and literary scholars have long debated the role of dreams in ancient epic. Some view them as narrative devices that guide the audience toward coming events. Others see them as reflections of cultural beliefs about communication between mortals and divine powers. But inside this room, the dream feels personal, because Penelope is describing your return while speaking to you as a stranger. The distance between truth and recognition has never been smaller. You want to reach forward, to take her hand, to say her name, but you remain still. You remember the plan. You remember Athena. You remember the danger. A single emotional mistake could destroy everything. So you continue the conversation. You tell her that Odysseus is close, that he will return. That hope is not foolish. Penelope does not immediately accept this. She has waited too long to surrender herself completely to hope. That may be one of the most human aspects of her character. She is not simply faithful because she believes. She is faithful because she chooses, even without certainty. Outside, the night wind moves through the olive trees. The palace grows quieter. The fire burns lower. For a moment, you both sit within the same silence. Two people who have lost years. Two people who have survived through patience. Two people connected by a truth neither can fully speak. Before you leave, Penelope asks one final thing. She wants to know whether the stranger has truly seen Odysseus. The question hangs in the air, a simple question, but one that contains 20 years of longing. You answer carefully. You say yes. You have seen him. You know him, and soon he will return. The words are almost unbearable because they are true. You are speaking about yourself, yet you are still hidden. As you leave the chamber, one thought remains. The gods may have guided your ships. They may have protected your life. They may have arranged your return. But perhaps the greatest challenge was never reaching Ithaca. Perhaps it was standing before the person you love most and waiting for the right moment to be known. The palace grows quieter after your meeting with Penelope. The torches burn lower. The voices of the suitors become distant echoes. The great hall, once filled with careless laughter, begins to settle into the slow rhythm of night. Yet you remain awake. Sleep does not come easily. You have crossed the sea for 20 years. You have survived storms, monsters, and divine anger. But the hardest moments of your return have not been battles. They have been moments of recognition delayed. Seeing Penelope, hearing her speak of you, watching her grieve for a man sitting only a few steps away. These experiences have tested a different part of you. The warrior can fight. The sailor can endure. But the husband must wait. And waiting has always been your greatest challenge. As the night continues, another person moves through the palace. Eurycleia, your old nurse, the woman who cared for you when you were a child. Before Troy, before kingship, before the stories, she belongs to the earliest part of your memory. Long before you became a warrior, you were simply a boy in Ithaca, a child running through fields, a son of Laertes and Anticlea. A person who had not yet learned how much the world could take away. Now she approaches carrying water. Penelope has asked her to wash the feet of the stranger. This is another act of hospitality, a small gesture. But in ancient households, caring for a guest was a meaningful responsibility. A visitor was not simply fed and ignored. The host's household participated in receiving and honouring the stranger. Eurycleia does not know who you are. At least, she believes she does not. She carries a basin. The water is warm. Steam rises gently in the torchlight. You sit quietly. Again, you must become someone else. Again, you must hide. She touches your feet. Her hands are old now. They have aged alongside the household. She has served generations. She knows the palace better than almost anyone. Perhaps that is why this moment is so dangerous. People who knew you before the journey are the greatest threat to your disguise. A stranger might believe the appearance. A memory may not. As she washes your feet, her fingers move across your skin. Then she stops. A sudden silence. Her hands have found the scar from the boar hunt. The mark you received as young man during a journey to your grandfather's land. A wound from long before Troy. Long before the Cyclops, long before your name became famous. It is a mark only a few people would know. Eurycleia knows. Her hands tremble. The basin nearly slips. The water moves softly. The torch flame flickers. And suddenly the old nurse sees not the beggar. She sees the child she raised. The young man who left. The king who was lost. You see recognition arrive before words. Her eyes fill. She knows. The truth has crossed the final barrier, not through appearance, not through your voice, through memory. This is one of the most powerful ideas in your entire journey. Identity is not simply what others see, it is what others remember. A person can change clothing, a person can age, a person can suffer, but certain connections remain. Euryclea's reaction reaches beyond the physical scar. She remembers who you were before the world transformed you. Before the warrior, before the exile, before the disguise. For her, you are still the boy she once cared for. The moment is dangerous. She could cry out. She could announce your name. She could bring the palace running. You grab her hand. You stop her. Your voice becomes a warning. Silence. Not because you do not trust her. Because you trust her enough to know she would act from love. And love, without patience, could destroy everything. Euryclea understands. She has lived long enough to understand the wisdom behind your caution. The gods have brought you home, but the final steps still require human discipline. You tell her that Athena has guided the plan. You explain that the time has not yet come. She agrees. Her loyalty is not loud. It is controlled. That may be why it has survived. Outside the chamber, the palace sleeps. The suitors dream without knowing that the man they fear is already inside. The household continues as though nothing has changed. But beneath the surface, every piece is moving into place. Euryclea leaves quietly. You remain alone again. The scar feels different now. It is not merely a wound from the past. It is a bridge between who you were and who you became. Ancient Greek audiences would have understood the importance of such signs. Heroes are often marked by objects, wounds, or memories that reveal hidden identity. The body can carry history even when words cannot. Your scar tells a story older than Troy, older than the wandering, older than the anger of Poseidon. It belongs to the beginning, and perhaps that is why it nearly reveals the end. A question remains, however. Why did the moment happen now? Why did the truth almost escape before your final victory? Was it chance? Was it fate? Was it the gods arranging events according to a larger design? The ancient poem allows all possibilities. Fate and human choice exist together. You are guided, but you still must decide. You are protected, but you still must act carefully. The night continues. The palace grows darker. Somewhere above, the stars remain visible through the open spaces between clouds. The same stars that guided sailors across dangerous seas now watch over a household waiting for judgment. Soon, the contest of the bow will begin. Soon, the weapon connected to your identity will return to your hands. But before that moment arrives, another challenge remains. Penelope must announce the test, and the weapon you left behind 20 years ago must reveal whether the man standing in disguise is truly the king who once held it. The scar has almost spoken. The bow will speak next. Morning returns to Ithaca. The first light enters through the palace openings, touching the stone floors and wooden beams with a soft golden glow. For most people inside the household, it appears to be another ordinary day. The servants begin their tasks. The fires are prepared. Food is carried into the hall. The suitors awaken expecting another feast. Another day of comfort. Another day in a palace they believe they have already claimed. But beneath the surface, the entire household has reached a turning point. The signs have gathered. The warnings have been spoken. The stranger has entered. The prince has returned. The old nurse knows the truth. And now Penelope prepares the test that will reveal what even she does not yet fully understand. The bow. Your bow? The weapon that has waited inside your household for 20 years. It rests as a silent witness to everything that happened while you were away. Unlike a sword, which can belong to many warriors, the bow carries a different kind of identity. It requires a particular strength, a particular skill, a relationship between the person and the weapon. The bow remembers the hands that mastered it. Ancient Greek audiences would have understood the symbolic power of this object. Weapons in epic poetry are rarely ordinary tools. They carry history. They carry reputation. They connect generations. A hero's armor, spear, or sword can represent his identity. But your bow represents something even more personal. No one else can use it as you can. That is why Penelope chooses it. She does not announce a simple competition. She creates a question. Who truly belongs in this household? The suitors gather. They listen as Penelope explains her decision. The man who can string your bow and shoot an arrow through a series of axe heads will become her husband. The challenge sounds impossible. The suitors laugh. not because they believe they have already won, because they cannot imagine losing. This is another sign of their blindness. They do not consider the possibility that the old order might return. They have spent so long treating absence as permanent that they cannot imagine restoration. Telemachus watches. He knows what is coming. You watch as well. Still disguised, still silent, still waiting. The bow is brought forward. Perhaps servants remember carrying it long ago. Perhaps some among them feel a strange unease when they see it. Objects often preserve memories that people lose. The wooden walls remember. The stones remember. The bull remembers. Only the men who occupy the hall have forgotten. One by one, the suitors attempt the challenge. The first picks up the bow confidently. He examines it. He tries to bend it, but it resists. The wood does not respond. The string remains beyond his ability. Another tries. Then another. Their confidence slowly changes. The laughter becomes less certain. The room becomes quieter. The impossible begins revealing itself. You watch carefully. This is not merely a contest of strength. It is a demonstration of something deeper. The suitors have taken everything in the palace except one thing: recognition. They have eaten your food. They have slept under your roof. They have pursued your wife. But they cannot become you. The bow refuses them. Outside, the wind moves through the olive trees. The same trees that witnessed your childhood. The same landscape that existed before your departure. Ancient Greeks often associated trees and sacred landscapes with continuity. An olive tree could represent endurance because it survived seasons, storms, and generations in Ithaca, where your marriage bed itself is connected to an olive tree. The natural world becomes part of the memory of your household. The suitors do not understand this. They see only an object. They do not understand the relationship between a person and a place, between a ruler and a home, between a husband and a promise. Then Telemachus steps forward. For a moment, everyone watches. He is young, but no longer uncertain. He takes the bow. The room changes. You know what he is doing. He is not trying to defeat the suitors. He is showing them something. He is the son of Odysseus. He belongs to this house. 3 times he tries. 3 times he nearly succeeds. Perhaps he could have completed the challenge. Perhaps Athena quietly guides him away. Ancient traditions often leave space for such mysteries. Did Telemachus truly fail? Or did he understand that the time had not yet arrived? He places the bow down. The moment passes. Then you speak, quietly. You ask for a chance. The hall reacts immediately. Laughter, disbelief, anger. The old beggar, the stranger, a man who can barely stand. They cannot imagine such a person touching the weapon of a legendary king. This is exactly why the plan works. The suitors do not fear you. They do not recognize the danger. But Penelope listens. She watches. Something about your confidence unsettles the room. You are not behaving like a helpless wanderer. You're behaving like someone who knows exactly what he is doing. Some protest. They say the beggar should not be allowed. They say it is disrespectful. But Penelope insists. The stranger should be allowed to try. Perhaps she doesn't know why she makes this decision. Perhaps something within her senses the shape of the moment. Or perhaps she simply believes that a contest should be fair, even after everything. She still honors the rules of hospitality. The bow is placed before you. The room becomes silent. You look at it. 20 years. 20 years since your hands held it. The weapon feels familiar. Like an old companion, your fingers move across the wood. You inspect it. Not nervously, not desperately. Like a craftsman examining a tool he knows completely. The suitors watch with amusement. They still believe they are safe. But somewhere beyond the walls, the sky changes. A distant rumble moves across the heavens. A sign. A warning. The ancient audience would recognize the importance of such timing. Thunder from Zeus often appears at moments when justice approaches. The natural world seems to respond to human actions. You lift the bow. The entire palace waits. And for the first time in 20 years, the weapon of Odysseus returns to the hands of Odysseus before the bow speaks, before the arrow flies, before the palace understands what has entered its walls. There is a final moment of stillness, a moment almost too quiet for what is about to happen. You stand holding the bow of Odysseus. The weapon rests in your hands as naturally as though no time has passed. The wood is smooth beneath your fingers. The string waits. The great hall watches. For everyone else, this is a contest. For you, it is a return. 20 years ago, these hands held this bow as a king. Since then, they have held oars during storms. They have gripped rocks while escaping danger. They have reached toward shores where you were not sure you would survive. They have carried the memory of Ithaca through every hardship. Now they hold the object that connects all those versions of yourself. The warrior, the survivor, the husband, the father, the king. All of them stand together in this moment. The suitors still do not understand. That may be their final mistake. They have seen your suffering. They have heard your requests. They have watched you endure humiliation. But they never imagined that weakness could be a disguise. They never considered that patience could be a weapon. You begin preparing the bow, slowly, carefully, not with desperation, with familiarity. The hall becomes silent. Even those who mocked you begin to notice something unusual. The stranger is not struggling. He is not guessing. He knows. The confidence begins to disappear from their faces. A man's true nature is often revealed not when he is winning, but when he realizes he may lose. Some look uncomfortable. Some become angry. Some search for explanations. They cannot accept what their eyes are showing them. The bow is moving. The impossible is becoming possible. You string it. The sound echoes through the hall. A clear, powerful note, like a musician testing an instrument, like a ship's rope pulled tight before a voyage, like a voice returning after years of silence. The sound carries through the palace, and perhaps, symbolically, through all of Ithaca. The household hears it. The walls hear it. The memories hear it. This is the moment when the past and present finally touch. Ancient Greek audiences would have recognized the importance of such objects that bridge generations. The bow is not simply a weapon. It is proof, a physical connection between the missing king and the household that waited. The suitors fall quiet. Then you take the arrow. Your hands move with certainty. You aim. The challenge is completed. The arrow passes through the axe heads exactly as required. For a hot beat, no one speaks. The impossible has happened. A beggar has succeeded where wealthy princes failed, but they still do not know the truth. Not yet. You lower the bow. Your expression changes. The patience remains, but something else appears. Purpose. The long waiting is over. You turn toward your son. Telemachus understands. This is the signal. The moment has arrived. The palace doors are no longer merely entrances. They have become boundaries. On one side stand the old order. On the other stands judgment. You see Athena's influence in every detail, not because she removes the danger, because she helped create the opportunity. The gods in Greek mythology often work through preparation, timing, and hidden assistance. Heroes are not simply handed victory. They are placed in moments where their choices reveal who they are. You have chosen patience. Now you choose action. The first target is Antinous, the man who struck you. The man who mocked the stranger, the man who believed no consequence could reach him. He sits comfortably, a cup of wine in his hand, laughing, still thinking about tomorrow, still believing tomorrow will resemble every day before it. That is the blindness of the suitors. They imagine the future as a continuation of their comfort, but the future has already arrived. You raise the bow. The hall does not understand. Some may think you are still part of the contest. Some may think another arrow is coming. Then the arrow flies. The moment is sudden, terrible. The celebration ends. The great hall becomes something else. Not a dining room, not a place of hospitality, a place of judgment. The reaction is immediate. Confusion, shock, fear. The men who spent years consuming your household finally recognize the truth. The beggar was not a beggar. The powerless man was not powerless. The stranger was the owner of the house. You reveal yourself. Your voice carries through the hall. You speak your name, Odysseus. For years, Your name was hidden. You were nobody before the Cyclops. You were a stranger among strangers. You were a man lost between worlds. Now the name returns, and with it comes everything attached to it. The war, the journey, the suffering, the kingdom, the memory. The suitors freeze. Some refuse to believe. Others understand immediately. The impossible explanation is the only explanation left. The old beggar was the missing king. The man they insulted was the man whose home they had stolen. The man they ignored was the one person who could destroy their certainty. A silence falls, not peaceful. The silence before a storm. Outside, thunder answers, a divine sign. A reminder of the larger forces surrounding this moment. Ancient Greeks listening to this scene would understand the connection between justice and divine order. The suitors have violated sacred boundaries repeatedly. They abused hospitality. They threatened the household's future. They ignored warnings. Now the consequences arrive. But even here, the story is not simple. You are not merely a hero defeating villains. You are a man returning after unimaginable loss. You know what violence costs. You have seen cities fall. You have watched companions die. You have visited the world of the dead. The battle ahead is necessary according to the logic of the epic, but it is not something to celebrate lightly, because every victory has a shadow, and every act of revenge creates another question. When justice is complete, what kind of peace will remain? The answer must wait. The palace has crossed the final boundary. The bow has spoken. The king has returned. And the men who believed the past was gone now face the consequence of discovering that memory can survive longer than power. The Great Hall has changed. Only moments earlier, it was a place of careless celebration. The suitors sat beneath your roof with confidence. They drank from your cups. They ate from your tables. They spoke as though the future belonged entirely to them. Now the same room feels unfamiliar. The air is heavier. The laughter has disappeared. The torches flicker against frightened faces. The man they ignored stands before them, not as a beggar, not as a stranger, as Odysseus. The name itself carries weight. For some, it is the name of a hero from Troy. For others, it is the name of a king whose absence created their opportunity. And now they understand that absence was never the same as death. You look across the hall. The men who surrounded Penelope, the men who consumed your household, the men who believed patience meant weakness, they finally see the truth. The past didn't disappear, it was waiting. Yet before the first arrow flies, there is a strange quietness, a pause between revelation and action. This pause matters, because the Odyssey is not only a story about revenge, it is a story about recognition. For 20 years, everyone in Ithaca has lived with uncertainty. Is Odysseus alive? Will he return? What happens when the missing king finally appears? Now the question has been answered, but another question remains. What will the returned king do? The suitors begin speaking. Some deny reality. Some accuse you of deception. Some claim the contest was unfair. This reaction reveals something important. Even when confronted with truth, people often search for ways to avoid responsibility. The suitors do not immediately say, "We were wrong." They search for excuses. They look for another explanation. Perhaps this is the final form of their blindness. They can see the king, but they cannot see their own guilt. Telemachus moves beside you. The transformation in him is remarkable. The young man who once struggled to speak among the suitors now stands beside his father. Not behind, beside. The journey has changed him. He is no longer simply the son waiting for a legacy. He is part of the restoration of that legacy. You give him the signal. The weapons must be removed. The plan begins. Earlier, while the household remained unaware, Telemachus followed your instructions carefully. The weapons hanging throughout the hall represented danger. In the ancient world, weapons displayed inside a great hall were not only practical objects, they were symbols. They represented family strength, military identity, honor. By removing them, Telemachus has already weakened the confidence of the suitors without their knowing. A household stripped of weapons becomes vulnerable, but a household prepared by strategy becomes a trap. This is where your greatest talent appears again. Not physical strength, Not speed, preparation. The same quality that allowed you to survive Troy now allows you to reclaim Ithaca. The doors are secured, the exits are controlled. The enemy is surrounded. The suitors finally begin to understand. They are trapped. Fear spreads. A man who has never considered consequences does not know how to respond when consequences arrive. One of them searches for a weapon. Another looks toward the doors. Another calls for help. But there is no army waiting outside. No rescue. No escape. Only the truth they avoided for years. You have returned. The first attacks begin. The hall erupts into movement. The sound of bronze. The shouting of men. The movement of feet across stone. The peaceful household becomes a battlefield. Yet unlike Troy, this battle is contained. No city walls. No armies. No thousands of soldiers. Only one household deciding its future. You fight beside Telemachus. Father and son. A bond that did not exist yesterday. A partnership formed almost instantly. There is something deeply tragic and beautiful about it. You are fighting together, but you are also making up for 20 years you lost. Every movement carries that contradiction. Joy and sorrow. Reunion and violence. The gods watch. Athena remains near. She moves through the hall unseen by most. Her presence gives confidence. But even divine support does not erase the danger. A battle is still a battle. Men still bleed. Choices still have consequences. The suitors are not harmless. They are desperate. Desperation creates unpredictable enemies. One of them attempts to find weapons stored elsewhere. Another searches for allies among the servants. And this reveals another important part of your return. The palace is not only divided between you and the suitors, it is divided between memory and forgetfulness. Some servants remained loyal. Others abandoned your household. Some were children when you left. Others made choices during your absence. A kingdom is not restored simply by defeating its enemies. It must also confront what happened while the ruler was gone. Outside, the sky darkens. Thunder moves over Ithaca again. A sign. A reminder. The ancient Greeks often connected thunder with Zeus, especially in moments involving justice and authority, whether interpreted as a divine message or a dramatic symbol. The storm reflects the feeling that the universe itself is responding. The suitors once ignored warnings. Now they cannot. The contest has begun. Not the contest of the bow. The true contest. The contest between disorder and order. Between arrogance and restraint. Between those who consume without responsibility and those who carry the burden of rebuilding. You remember every step that brought you here. The cave beneath the island. Athena's disguise. Eumaeus' loyalty. Telemachus' courage. Argos waiting at the gate. Penelope's dream. The scar recognized by Eurycleia. Every sign. Every person. Every moment. The journey was never only about crossing the sea. It was about becoming the man capable of returning. The battle continues through the hall. The flames rise. The weapons clash. And as the suitors fight desperately for a future they believe they deserve, you realize something. They were never defeated when the arrow struck. They were defeated long before. The moment they forgot that the house they occupied belonged to someone else. The great hall of Ithaca has become a place of transformation. For years, it was a dining room, a place where stories were told, where guests were welcomed, where families gathered beneath the protection of the household gods. But now every torch, every table, every stone seems to hold the memory of what has happened. The same room that witnessed the arrogance of the suitors now witnesses the return of its rightful master. You stand with the bow in your hands. The weapon feels familiar, not because time has stopped, because some connections survive time. Your fingers know the shape of the wood. Your eyes know the distance. Your body remembers. There is a quiet moment before action, a breath, a heartbeat, a pause between the man you were and the man you have become. The suitors are confused. They still struggle to understand the reality before them. The old beggar has vanished. The king has returned, yet their minds resist accepting it. Perhaps because accepting the truth means accepting responsibility. If you're truly Odysseus, then every feast was theft. Every insult was an offense. Every plan against Telemachus was a crime. The past they ignored has suddenly returned to judge them. This is one of the deepest ideas within the Odyssey. The past does not disappear simply because people stop remembering it. Actions remain, promises remain, debts remain. The Greeks often described this through the idea of justice returning after disorder. A person might escape consequences for a time, but imbalance eventually demands restoration. The suitors created imbalance. Now the household seeks correction. You look toward Telemachus. He stands ready. The boy who was left behind has become the man standing beside you. There is no time to explain everything. No time for long conversations. The moment requires action. You release the arrow. The sound is almost quiet compared with the chaos that follows. A single movement, a single decision. The first strike changes everything. The suitors finally understand that the contest is over. This is no longer about a bow, no longer about marriage, no longer about competition. It is judgment. Panic spreads. Men who once laughed at a helpless stranger now search desperately for survival. Some call for weapons, some demand explanations, some accuse each other. Fear reveals what confidence had hidden. You see the difference immediately. When they believed themselves powerful, they acted as one. Now that power has disappeared, their unity disappears with it. That too is a lesson. Groups built only on advantage often collapse when advantage is removed. The faithful remain faithful. The selfish become desperate. The loyal stand firm. The arrogant look for escape. Athena moves through the hall. Her presence changes the atmosphere, not as a warrior replacing human effort, as a force strengthening those who have already chosen their path. This reflects an important theme in Greek mythology. The gods may favour mortals, but mortals still must act. A hero cannot simply wait for destiny. A person must meet destiny halfway. You have done that for years. Every decision on your journey brought you here. The choice to leave Troy. The choice to survive. The choice to resist Calypso's offer. The choice to trust Athena. The choice to hide your identity. The choice to wait. Now all those choices converge. The battle intensifies. Telemachus fights beside you. There is something almost impossible about the scene. A father and son who met only recently now defend the same household. The missing years cannot be recovered, but perhaps they can be answered. Not through words, through action, through standing together, through proving that the bond between them survived even without shared memories. The hall becomes filled with movement. Bronze flashes in the torchlight. Shouts echo from the walls. The smell of smoke and sweat replaces the earlier scent of wine and roasted meat. The palace that once represented comfort now represents struggle. Yet beneath the violence, another restoration is occurring. Order is returning, not peacefully, not without cost, but returning. The ancient world often understood justice differently from modern ideas. Restoration was not always gentle. A wronged household sought balance through punishment. A dishonoured family sought to recover reputation. A violated oath demanded consequence. The Odyssey reflects that world, but it also carries another question. After justice is complete, what remains? You have spent years longing for Ithaca, but Ithaca is not the same island you left. You are not the same man. The victory you imagined long ago was simpler. Reach home. Embrace your family. Rest. Reality is more complicated. Homecoming brings responsibility. A king must not only reclaim, he must rebuild. For now, however, the battle continues. One of the suitors, Amphinomus, stands out among the chaos. Unlike many others, he showed some kindness during your disguise. He was not as openly cruel as Antinous. This reminds you, even in the middle of revenge, that human beings are rarely simple. The ancient poem allows moments of complexity. Not every person on the wrong side is identical. Not every person who hesitates is innocent. A person's choices matter, and choices are made one moment at a time. Outside, the wind rises. The sea crashes against the distant cliffs. The same sea that carried you away now surrounds the island where your final battle unfolds. The journey that began with ships ends inside your own home. The greatest danger was never only the distance between Troy and Ithaca. It was what happened while you were gone. As another wave of attackers approaches, you tighten your grip. The bow remains steady. Your name has returned. Your household has awakened. And the men who believed the king was only a memory are discovering the truth. Memory can sleep, but it does not die. The battle continues beneath the roof that was once the heart of your household. The great hall trembles with noise. Bronze strikes against bronze. Footsteps move across the stone floor. Torches flicker as men struggle in the confusion of a world that has suddenly changed. For years, the suitors believed they were creating a new future. They believed Odysseus belonged to the past. They believed time itself had chosen their side. Now they discover the mistake that destroys many who hold power too long. They confused absence with disappearance. They confused patience with weakness. They confused silence with surrender. You stand among them as the truth they refuse to imagine. The king who vanished has returned, but your return is not the return of the young warrior who sailed toward Troy. That man left 20 years ago. The person standing here carries every storm, every loss, every lesson. You are not simply reclaiming a palace. You are restoring a broken order. The suitors fight desperately. Without preparation, their confidence collapses. They were never warriors united by loyalty. They were men united by opportunity. Now opportunity has vanished. Some look for weapons, some search for exits, some blame others. The same voices that once laughed together now accuse each other. This is the final revelation of their character. When comfort disappears, people reveal what they truly value. You remember the first days of your journey, your companions standing beside you, the ships leaving Troy, the confidence of men who believed they would return quickly. You remember how that confidence disappeared one storm at a time. Perhaps that is why you understand the difference between courage and arrogance. Courage knows danger exists. Arrogance believes danger cannot reach you. The suitors lived in arrogance. Now danger stands before them. Telemachus fights beside you. There is a moment when you look at him and recognize how much has changed. Yesterday he was the son searching for a father. Today he stands as a partner. The ancient world valued the bond between generations because households survived through continuity. A father passed down not only wealth, but memory, identity, and responsibility. For 20 years, that connection was broken. Now it is being restored, not through peaceful conversation, through a struggle that neither of you wanted but both of you inherited. Eumaeus and Philoetius also fight beside you. Their loyalty matters. They are not powerful nobles. They are servants, but they represent something the suitors never understood. A household is not held together only by wealth. It is held together by relationships, by trust, by people who remember what something meant before others tried to take it. The loyal servants become part of the restoration. The forgotten foundation of Ithaca rises again. As the battle continues, Athena's presence becomes clearer. The goddess moves through the hall, strengthening your side and frightening your enemies. Ancient Greeks often imagined divine assistance through courage, clarity, and sudden changes of fortune. A god might not replace human action, but could amplify the qualities already present within a hero. Athena does not fight your battle for you. She reveals what you are capable of. That distinction matters. Your victory belongs partly to divine guidance, but it also belongs to the choices you made, the patience, the restraint, the ability to wait, the ability to endure humiliation without losing yourself. Those qualities brought you here. Then a moment arrives that reveals another truth. Some of the suitors try to appeal to you. They realize the situation has become hopeless. They speak of mistakes, of pressure, of others leading them. Their words contain fragments of truth. Not every man acted from the same motive. Not every voice in the hall carried equal cruelty. But the consequences of their choices remain. For years, they entered your home. They ate your food. They pressured your wife. They threatened your son. They ignored warnings. They watched others commit wrongs and chose comfort over responsibility. The ancient audience would understand this. Silence can become a decision. Injustice often survives because ordinary people allow it. A person does not always need to commit the greatest offense to become part of a greater wrongdoing. Sometimes they only need to remain seated at the table. The fighting moves toward its conclusion. The hall grows quieter. The number of enemies decreases. The certainty that surrounded the suitors disappears completely. The palace that once seemed permanently lost begins returning to itself. But victory does not feel simple. You look around. The room is damaged. Lives have been changed. The cost of restoration is visible. A king may win his throne back, but he cannot return time. That is the sadness beneath the triumph of the Odyssey. Homecoming is joyful, but it is also filled with ghosts. The companions who sailed with you are gone. The years with Telemachus are gone. The younger Penelope is gone. The younger Odysseus is gone. You have returned, but you have returned as someone transformed. Outside, the night sky stretches over Ithaca. The stars shine with the same quiet indifference they held during your years away. They watched Troy fall. They watched your ships disappear. They watched your suffering. Now they watch your return. Perhaps this is one reason the ancient story has endured for so long. It is not only about adventure. It is about time. About what survives after time takes almost everything. The battle finally begins to fade. The sounds of weapons become fewer. The great hall grows still. The men who believed they had replaced you are gone. The household stands wounded but alive, and you stand in the center of it, not as the man who left, not yet as the peaceful king who must rebuild, but as the man between two worlds, the wanderer who's finally reached home. The question that remains is not whether you can defeat your enemies. You have. The question is whether the people you love will recognize the person who returned, because a kingdom can be reclaimed with weapons, but a life must be reclaimed through trust, and there is still one person whose judgment matters more than anyone else. Penelope. She has waited 20 years. She has heard countless stories. She has protected your name. Now she must decide whether the stranger standing before her is truly the husband she lost. The final test of your return has not yet arrived. The great hall is finally quiet. Not the peaceful quiet of a resting household. A deeper silence. The silence that follows the end of something that cannot be undone. The torches still burn. The smoke still rises toward the wooden beams. The stone floor still carries the marks of what happened. But the voices that once filled the room with arrogance have disappeared. For years, this hall belonged to uncertainty. Tonight, it belongs to memory. You stand among the remains of the struggle and feel the strange weight of victory. You have accomplished what seemed impossible. You crossed the sea. You survived the anger of Poseidon. You returned to Ithaca. You defeated the men who consumed your household. The prophecy of return has been fulfilled, and yet victory does not feel like the end. It feels like another beginning, because a palace is not restored simply because its enemies are gone. A household is not healed simply because justice has been delivered. The physical battle may be finished. The emotional one continues. You look around the hall. Every object carries a story. The tables where the suitors feasted. The walls that heard their laughter. The spaces where servants walked while wondering whether their true master would ever return. The palace remembers everything. Perhaps that is one of the reasons ancient Greeks placed such importance on household rituals. A home was not merely a collection of stones and wood. It was a living center of identity. The hearth represented continuity. The family represented inheritance. The household represented connection between past and future. When those things were threatened, restoring them became a sacred task. But before restoration can truly begin, betrayal must be addressed. The loyal servants who remained faithful are recognized. Their choices matter. Eumaeus, Philoetius, Eurycleia, people who continued serving a household even when the owner was absent. Their loyalty reveals something important about your kingdom. A ruler is not only defined by his power, he is defined by the relationships that remain when power disappears. The suitors believed wealth created loyalty. They believed fear created obedience, but they discovered something different. Trust lasts longer than intimidation. You think of Eumaeus again, the swineherd who welcomed you without knowing who you were. He gave food to a stranger because kindness was part of his character, not because he expected a reward. That memory stays with you, because after everything you endured, it is the smallest acts that often carry the greatest meaning. a meal beside a fire, a place to sleep, a dog recognizing your face, a son embracing you after 20 years, a wife waiting despite uncertainty. The great events brought you home. The small moments remind you why you wanted to return. Outside the palace, however, another danger approaches. The families of the suitors have learned what happened. Grief spreads through Ithaca. Sons, fathers, relatives, people who have lost members of their households. The cycle of revenge threatens to begin again. This is a familiar pattern in the ancient world. One act of violence creates another. One death demands another response. A family seeks justice. Another family seeks revenge. Soon, the original cause becomes buried beneath generations of conflict. The Greeks understood this danger deeply. Many myths are built around cycles of vengeance that seem impossible to escape. The question is not only how to punish wrongdoing, the question is how to end the chain. You have restored your household. Now you must prevent your victory from creating endless war. This is the final responsibility of a king. Not winning battles, ending them. Athena watches. The goddess who guided you through deception, patience, and strategy now prepares to guide the final step. Her role has always been connected with wisdom. Not only victory, a warrior can destroy. A wise ruler knows when destruction must end. You think back to Troy. The city burned because of a conflict that lasted years. You know the cost of endless fighting. You know what happens when pride refuses to surrender. Ithaca cannot become another Troy. The island must survive after your return. As dawn approaches, you finally move toward Penelope. The moment you imagined for 20 years is close. But something still stands between you. Trust. Because Penelope is not simply waiting for a familiar face. She is protecting herself. She has lived too long with uncertainty to accept the impossible without testing it. This reveals another aspect of her strength. She is not easily deceived, not even by hope. A weaker person might collapse immediately into emotion. Penelope remains careful. And perhaps that is why you love her. Because she understands the world the same way you do. The world contains disguises, false stories, hidden intentions. She knows that appearances cannot always be trusted. You have built your survival around that truth. Now you must prove yourself through something deeper than appearance. A memory, a private knowledge, a secret shared only between husband and wife. The palace grows brighter as morning approaches. The first light enters through the openings above the hall. The darkness of the previous night slowly fades. But the mystery remains. Will Penelope recognize you? Will she believe the impossible? Can 20 years of separation truly be crossed in a single moment? No battle remains. No enemy stands before you. Only the quiet challenge of being known. The final gate of your return is not made of stone. It is built from memory. And only Penelope holds the key. The morning light enters Ithaca slowly. After the violence of the night, the island seems almost impossibly peaceful. The sea moves gently beyond the cliffs. Birds call from the olive groves. The wind carries the familiar scent of salt and wild herbs through the open spaces of the palace. Nature continues as it always has, but inside the household of Odysseus, nothing is the same. The king has returned. The suitors are gone. The long uncertainty that shaped 20 years of life has reached its conclusion. And yet, for one person, the greatest uncertainty remains. Penelope. She stands before the possibility she has dreamed of for so long, and she does not immediately accept it. Some might expect a reunion to happen instantly. A wife sees her husband. A husband sees his wife. They embrace. The years disappear, but the Odyssey understands something more complicated about love. Time changes people. Pain changes people. Waiting changes people. Penelope is not the same woman who watched your ship leave for Troy, and you are not the same man who sailed away. A true reunion requires more than recognition. It requires rediscovering each other. When Eurycleia rushes to tell Penelope that Odysseus has returned, excitement fills the household. The old nurse believes the impossible has happened. The scar proved it. Memory proved it. The truth has finally arrived. But Penelope does not run. She does not collapse into immediate joy. Instead, she listens. She questions. She observes. Because she has survived 20 years by refusing to surrender her judgment. False messengers came before, false stories came before, men arrived claiming knowledge of Odysseus. Promises were made, hope was offered, hope was taken away. A person who has experienced that many disappointments learns caution. Her hesitation is not a lack of love. It is evidence of how deeply she's protected it. She enters the room where you wait, and again you see her. The woman who carried your memory through years when everyone else considered you lost. The firelight moves across her face. You notice the same quiet intelligence you remembered. But there is something else. Strength created by endurance. She has become someone who does not simply wait for events. She shapes them. The two of you stand separated by the distance created over 2 decades. You want to move toward her, but you understand. This moment belongs to her as much as it belongs to you. She must decide. She must know. Penelope does not ask for dramatic proof. She does not demand impossible signs. Instead, she tests the truth in the way only someone who truly knows you could. She listens. She watches. She considers. This is fitting, because your entire journey has been built around hidden identities. The Cyclops knew your strength, but not your name. Calypso knew your suffering, but not your homeland. The Phaeacians knew your story, but not your entire past. The suitors knew your absence, but not your return. Now Penelope must know the man beneath everything. Not the warrior, not the legend, not the king, the husband. She gives an instruction, a suggestion, a test. She tells the servants to move the marriage bed, to prepare a place elsewhere. The request seems simple, but you react immediately. Because there is one thing no stranger could know. The bed cannot be moved. It was built around the living trunk of an olive tree. You carve the chamber around it. You shape the room with your own hands. The tree became part of the marriage itself, rooted, stable, impossible to remove without destroying the structure. Your response reveals what appearance could not. You know the secret. You know the memory. You know the place where your marriage began. And Penelope understands. The test is complete. The truth is no longer uncertain. The two of you finally recognize each other. The moment is not only romantic, it is symbolic. The olive tree matters. For ancient Greeks, the olive tree represented endurance, peace, prosperity, and connection to the land. It survived harsh conditions and continued producing life. Your marriage was like that tree. Storms came. Distance came. Temptations came. Years passed. But the roots remained. The bed was not merely furniture. It was a physical memory, a promise made permanent, a reminder that some things cannot be moved without destroying what they represent. The reunion finally arrives, but even now joy carries sadness. You speak. You hold each other. You share the years that were missing, the stories you could not tell, the pain you carried alone, the moments when you almost lost hope. You discover that homecoming is not recovering the past. It is creating a future with what remains. Outside, Ithaca continues. The sea does not stop moving. The seasons do not reverse. The lost years do not return. But something important has been restored. Not youth. Not innocence. Not the world before Troy. Something more realistic. Connection. Memory. Belonging. The same qualities that brought you home. A mystery remains, however. Was the test truly only Penelope's decision? Or was it another moment arranged by fate? Another sign that the gods guided the final steps of your journey? Ancient interpretations differ. Some see Penelope's test as proof of human intelligence and caution. Others see it as part of the larger pattern of destiny surrounding your return. Perhaps both are true. The gods may open the path, but humans still must walk it. You and Penelope did. Slowly. Painfully. Faithfully. And now, after 20 years, you stand together again. The palace that once felt like a foreign place begins to feel like home. The fires burn. The walls remain. The olive tree still holds the secret of your marriage. And for the first time since leaving Ithaca, you no longer have to wonder whether you will return. You're here. The night after your reunion with Penelope is unlike any night you experienced during your long journey. There are no storms, No waves crashing against an unfamiliar shore. No monsters waiting beyond the darkness. No voices calling from distant islands. Only Ithaca. Only home. Yet perhaps this quietness feels more extraordinary than any adventure. For 20 years, you dreamed of this moment. You imagined the harbour, the palace, the faces of those you loved. But dreams often simplify what reality complicates. You returned, but you returned changed. Penelope waited, but she waited through pain, uncertainty, and years that cannot be restored. Telemachus found his father, but he found a man shaped by experiences he never shared. The return is complete, and yet the journey continues, because home is not a place you simply enter, it is a relationship you rebuild. You and Penelope remain together through the night. Speaking of the years that separated you, the stories come slowly. Some are difficult, some almost impossible to describe. How do you explain the feeling of standing before the walls of Troy? How do you describe hearing the voices of the dead? How do you explain an island where a goddess offered eternal life in exchange for abandoning the mortal world? Words are sometimes too small for experiences that reshape a person. But Penelope listens, and you listen as well, because she has her own journey. Her battles were not fought with swords. Her enemies were time, pressure, uncertainty, and loneliness. The world often remembers heroes who travel, but those who remain behind also endure great trials. Penelope's victory was not passive waiting. It was active survival. She protected the household. She protected Telemachus. She protected the possibility of your return. And perhaps that is why the two of you understand each other so deeply. You both live between hope and uncertainty. You both learned that patience can be a form of courage. As dawn approaches, the palace begins to awaken. Servants move quietly. Fires are prepared. The sounds of a living household return. Outside the palace walls, another matter remains unresolved. The families of the suitors are demanding justice. The deaths of their sons and relatives cannot simply disappear. The ancient world was deeply aware of how quickly violence could create more violence. A single killing could begin generations of revenge. This pattern appears throughout Greek mythology. Families become trapped in cycles where every act of punishment creates another reason for retaliation. The question facing Ithaca is larger than whether Odysseus deserves revenge. The question is whether the island can survive after revenge. A king must restore peace, not simply win. Athena understands this. She has guided you through war and deception. Now she must guide the world beyond them. The goddess appears again, not as a distant force, but as a reminder that wisdom must follow victory. Strength can reclaim a kingdom, only wisdom can preserve it. You think of the years before Troy. The Ithaca you remember was simpler. Not perfect, but familiar. Now you must rule a place that carries scars. The palace has changed. The people have changed. You have changed. A ruler who returns after a long absence cannot pretend nothing happened. He must understand what happened. The ancient Greeks often connected kingship with a responsibility toward order. A good ruler was not merely wealthy or powerful. He maintained balance. He honored gods. He protected guests. He defended his people. He remembered that authority came with obligations. The suitors forgot this. They believed power existed only to benefit themselves. Their downfall became a warning, but warnings only matter if they are remembered. As the day grows brighter, you look toward the sea. The same sea that separated you from Ithaca now surrounds it peacefully. It carried away your youth. It carried away your companions. It carried away years you will never recover. But it also carried you home. Perhaps this is the nature of life itself. The same forces that bring loss can sometimes bring unexpected return. A storm can destroy. A storm can also move a ship toward a destination it could never reach by calm waters. You have learned that destiny is not always gentle. Sometimes it arrives through hardship. Sometimes the path home is not a straight road. Sometimes a person must become lost before understanding what home truly means. Later, you visit your father Laertes. The reunion with him carries its own emotion. Unlike Penelope, he did not have certainty. Unlike Telemachus, he did not search across the sea. He waited in quiet grief. Age has taken much from him. He lives away from the palace, closer to the earth, tending his land. The king who once ruled Ithaca's household now spends his days among trees and fields. This too reflects the passage of time. Your return cannot restore his younger years, but it can restore a relationship. When you reveal yourself to him, another recognition occurs, another memory, another person who knew you before the journey. The circle of your return expands. Father, son, wife, household, land. The missing pieces slowly return. Yet one final lesson remains. Your story has never truly been about escaping death. Many heroes seek glory because they fear being forgotten. You have discovered something different. A person's legacy is not only the songs others sing, it is the lives touched along the way. Eumaeus remembered your kindness. Argos remembered your presence. Telemachus remembered your absence. Penelope remembered your promise. Laertes remembered your childhood. Your name survived because people carried pieces of you, not because you were invincible, or because you mattered to others. As evening approaches, Ithaca settles beneath the stars. The olive trees move gently in the wind. The fires burn softly. The palace, once filled with strangers, begins to feel alive again. The journey that began with a departure has reached its deepest destination. Not merely a place, a belonging, but one final chapter remains, because even after kings return and households are restored, human beings must still face the greatest truth. Time continues, life continues, the world moves forward, and every mortal must eventually discover what remains after the journey ends. The final morning of your long journey arrives quietly. There is no thunder, no crashing sea, no voice from the heavens announcing that the story has reached its conclusion. Only dawn. The first light touches the hills of Ithaca. Mist rises slowly from the valleys. Olive branches move gently in the morning breeze. The sea, which once carried storms and danger, now rests calmly beneath the pale sky. It is almost difficult to believe that this peaceful island was the destination of such a long and painful journey. But perhaps that is the nature of home. It does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits silently until the person searching for it is finally ready to understand what it means. You have returned. But the man who returned is not the same man who left. The young king who sailed toward Troy believed the world could be shaped through courage and cleverness alone. The man standing on Ithaca now knows something deeper. Life cannot always be controlled. Storms arrive. People are lost. Promises are tested. Even the strongest person can become powerless. Yet within all those uncertainties, something can survive. Memory, love, loyalty, the quiet bonds between people. Those are the things that carried you home. You walk through Ithaca and see the island differently. The fields are familiar. The hills are familiar. The sea is familiar. But familiarity itself has changed. You once thought home was a place waiting for your return. Now you understand that home is something created between people. A place becomes meaningful because of the memories held within it. The palace was never only stone. It was Penelope waiting, Telemachus growing, Euryclea remembering, Eumaeus remaining loyal, Argos recognizing you when no human could. The island itself carried these memories while you were gone. Ancient Greek audiences would have understood this deeply. The stories of heroes were not preserved only because of battles and victories. They endured because they explored questions every generation faces. Who are we after suffering changes us? What remains when years are lost? Can someone truly return to the life they left behind? The answer given by your story is complicated. You can return, but you cannot go backward. Time does not surrender. The child Telemachus was gone before you came back. The younger Penelope was gone. The companions who sailed with you were gone. The warrior who left Ithaca was gone. But something new existed in their place. A father and son who finally met. A husband and wife who rediscovered each other. A king who understood the cost of ruling. A man who learned that survival is not the same as living. Your journey across the sea was filled with strange places. The island of the Cyclops. The halls of Circe. The world beneath the earth. The shores of Calypso. The land of the Phaeacians. Each place revealed something about humanity. The Cyclops revealed the danger of arrogance. Circe revealed transformation. The underworld revealed memory and mortality. Calypso revealed the temptation to escape human suffering. The Phaeacians revealed kindness from strangers. Every stop along the journey became a lesson. And perhaps Ithaca itself was the final lesson. Because the hardest journey was not across the sea. It was becoming the person capable of returning. The ancient Greeks often believed fate surrounded human life. Certain events seemed woven into a larger design. The gods could send signs. Prophecies could reveal possibilities. Dreams could offer glimpses of what might come. But within that world, human choices still mattered. You chose to continue. You chose Ithaca over immortality. You chose patience over anger. You chose wisdom over pride. Those choices shaped the ending. Not fate alone. Not the gods alone. A life is created through the meeting of forces beyond us and decisions within us. As evening approaches once more, you stand beneath the olive trees. The same kind of tree that became the foundation of your marriage bed. The same symbol of endurance that survived seasons before your birth and will survive seasons after your death. The tree does not stop growing because storms arrive. It bends, it loses branches, it bears scars, but it continues. Perhaps humans are the same. We are shaped by what happens to us. The wounds remain, the memories remain. The years we lose cannot be returned, but life continues creating something new. Your name will survive, not because you defeated enemies, not only because you sailed beyond known waters, not only because poets remembered your cleverness. Your legacy survives because you returned, because you loved a place enough to endure for it, because others remembered you when you were gone, because even after 20 years, a single dog lifted its head and knew you. The stars appear above Ithaca, the same stars that watched your departure, the same stars that watched your wandering, the same stars that watched your return. They remain unchanged, but you are not, and perhaps that is the quiet truth beneath every human journey. The world continues, the seasons change, generations pass, but the moments we share become part of something larger. The fire in the palace burns softly now. The voices inside are calm. The sea whispers against the shore. The wind moves through the olive branches, and after all the storms, after all the uncertainty, after all the years spent searching for a place you never stopped loving, you finally understand the meaning of home. Home was never only the island. Home was the memory carried across the distance. Home was the promise that survived time. Home was the people who waited. Home was the person you became along the way. So as the night settles over Ithaca, you rest beneath the quiet sky. The journey is complete. The sea is calm. The fires are warm. The old wounds have become memories. And the story of Odysseus, the man who wandered farther than any mortal should have travelled, comes to rest not with conquest, but with peace. The waves continue their gentle rhythm. The olive trees whisper in the darkness. The stars remain above, and slowly, quietly, after a lifetime of searching, you finally sleep at home.